Yes. Let me go upstairs to change first. Mag nodded, and went upstairs to change into the full set of his gear, including the face mask. Let's go. Irina grabbed Mag's hand, and the two of them disappeared from the restaurant after a beam of green light flashed under their feet. An elf strode into the starry cave, and spoke respectfully to Helena on the platform. High Priestess, the spell formation is already set up. As long as Irina and Alex dare to come, we will definitely capture or kill them. Don't be complacent. The Wind Forest has already been the butt of a joke once. I don't want the same thing to ever happen again, Helena said coldly. Yes. That elf tensed up, and then retreated out of the cave with his body bowed. Helena looked at the biggest star that was flickering in the starry sky, and quietly murmured, Your Majesty, I do not have a choice. For the elves' future, I have to do that. All those people who tried to destroy what we built deserve to die. In the Wind Forest, the aristocrats were wearing their fineries and going to Life Square in their opulent carriages. Today was the conferring ceremony for the new elven princess. The ceremony would be held in front of Life Square, and Sally would receive the blessing and recognition from the Tree of Life. After Princess Irina was deposed, the Wind Forest no longer had a princess. Hence, this was a very important matter to the Wind Forest. Almost all the elves knew about this, but only the nobles were allowed to attend the conferring ceremony. The servants and slaves had to continue working in the house, while the ordinary elves were kept out of the ceremonies area as they weren't allowed to watch it. However, even though the ordinary elves had no rights to watch the conferring ceremony of the elven princess, they were allowed to watch the 100-odd elves sentenced to death for treason up close. The execution platform was set up beyond the restricted area. Those elves who were deemed traitors were locked in metal cages, and their limbs were chained up with heavy metal chains. There were dozens of wounds on their bodies left by the interrogating and whipping. But there wasn't any fear on the elves' faces and in their eyes. They were just like silent rocks that were trapped in the metal cages as they looked at their people with a resolute gaze. Those elves beyond the cages were also looking at their people in them. Looking at the black metal railings, they couldn't differentiate if they were in the cages or beyond the cages in a moment of confusion. Mother, why are they locked up in the cages? Are they the bad guys? A little boy asked softly, tugging on his mother's clothes. That young elf shook his head, and softly said, No. It's because they're seeking their freedom. Freedom? What's that? That young boy asked curiously. SHHH. The young mother covered the boy's mouth and looked around her nervously. After making sure that no elves around had noticed them, only then she whispered, That's something we don't say out loud. Oh. The little boy nodded as if he understood. Although he didn't know why his mother was so nervous, that had to be a terrifying thing, and that was why those elves were locked up. The grand ceremony was under preparation, and the new princess was going to take her place. But there wasn't any happy ambience in the Wind Forest. Instead, there was a hint of tension. The elves who were the guards had already knocked their arrows as they looked at the ordinary elves watching the prisoners nervously. The entire forest was full of hidden tension. The order has been confirmed. Sally will formally announce your betrothal with her at the conferring ceremony today. This means that you will very likely become the Queen's consort in the future and enjoy a high status in the Wind Forest. In an opulent carriage, Vincent was talking to Blower, who was wearing luxurious clothes and sitting across from him. At the same time, hundreds of night elves are going to die. Blower lifted a corner of the curtain and looked out. The ordinary elves were already kept out of the square. He said with a sad and sarcastic expression, When I was small, I once heard grandmother said countless elves died here in their attempt to guard the Tree of Life, and then Life Square was built. I wonder if the descendants of those elves who gave up their lives for the eventual victory were blocked and not allowed to enter the square. As if he hadn't heard Blower's words, Vincent continued, The Baybilly family is going to gain a special status because of you. We will also receive the princess's protection. In this case, you know very well what I may do. Blower let down the curtain and looked straight into Vincent's eyes. Vincent remained silent for a moment before he looked into Blower's eyes and revealed a miserable smile. "Are you trying to write the Baybilly family's name into the history of elves with another method?" "Miss Sally, Lord Elliot is out there. He said he wanted to see you." "What do you think about it?" an elf respectfully asked Sally, who was grooming herself in front of the mirror, as she walked into a luxurious palace. Sally looked at her reflection in the mirror, and coldly said, "I don't want to see him." That elf opened her mouth and then quickly closed it again. She acknowledged and then turned to walk out. She bowed to Elliot at the door, and said, "Lord Elliot, Miss Sally is getting ready now, and it's not convenient for her to see you. If you need to talk to her, please do so after the conferring ceremony." This fellow, green veins were throbbing on Elliot's forehead. He didn't expect Sally would dare to lock him out. Looking at the doors of the new princess palace and the elven warriors standing in front of them, Elliot forcefully suppressed his anger, and nonchalantly said, "I see. She's indeed very busy now. Then, I shall see her after the conferring ceremony." "Chief, young mistress has refused to see you, so what will we do now?" the elf following after Elliot asked softly with a nervous look. "I'm afraid we cannot do anything today. But I've heard that Vincent's youngest son has been very weak since he was young. Hence, it wouldn't be a surprise if he suddenly dies of an illness in the future, right?" Elliot smirked. "Not a surprise at all." That elf's eyes glowed and he nodded. "I can teleport myself to the Tree of Life directly, and I will leave the rest out there to you," Irina said to Mag as the griffin landed at the periphery of the wind forest. A green teleportation portal appeared underneath her feet. "All right." Mag nodded and watched Irina leave. He patted the griffin's neck lightly. "Ozzy, the rest will depend on us." Chapter 1427 All of you are free now. Liberate the land, liberate the slaves. All the elves acknowledged him quietly with an equally agitated expression as they grasped their weapons and magic staffs. "The conferring ceremony is about to begin, and it's time for us to act. The princess and our brothers who are captured will try to buy us time, but all that is going to happen in the domains will have to depend on us." That elf drew out his sword gradually, and said in a low voice, "For freedom! For freedom!" All the elves stood up with their weapons raised up high, and followed that leader elf out of the cellar to begin their operation. Similar events were taking place all over the domains in the Wind Forest. Those elves who had regained their faith in freedom began to gather as they answered the Night Elves' call. They then picked up their weapons, and broke into the heavily guarded dungeons as they commenced their operation to liberate the slaves. There were the low-caste elves among them, and also the noble elves who were deeply inspired and the elves who were guarding the domains. The elven guards were either captured or killed. There were even many of them who chose to join the other side after learning about their agenda. The chains in the dungeon were smashed open, and the slaves and servants locked in there were liberated. The heavy chains on their limbs were broken. "All of you are free now," the Night Elves shouted at those elves who were still in a daze. "Freedom!" A gleam flashed through the eyes of those dejected elves. As if they had begun to make sense of something, their expression slowly became excited too. "Now, we're going to leave here, leave the Wind Forest and go southward to Chaos City. Princess Irina has already set up a base there, and we will lead a free life there," the leading night elf said as he brought all the slaves and other elves out of the dungeon. They brought along all the ordinary elves and the elven guards who chose to join them willingly as they broke into the nobles' stables housing horses and magic beasts. They then made their dash toward the south on the backs of those mounts. Those elven guards who tried to resist were either killed or locked in the dungeons. Black smoke began to rise up everywhere in the Wind Forest. That was the distress signal from all the nobles' domains, and it looked as if a raging fire was now burning everywhere in the Wind Forest. Seems like the infiltration was very successful. What a spectacular scene! Mag sat on Ozzy's back and looked down on the Wind Forest, which was set ablaze, with a smile on his face. The Night Elf's performance had far exceeded his expectations. He had flown by a few elven domains earlier, and there wasn't any need for him to interfere at all. Because the night elves had already rescued the slaves successfully. They broke into the nobles' stables, and brought the slaves on their long expedition. Their good execution and the empathy of the ordinary elves made this operation much smoother than anticipated. On the other hand, the conferring ceremony had formally begun at Life Square right now. The aristocratic elves in their opulent clothes were standing in the square according to their status. The leaders of the 8 major families stood in the forefront, and Elliot was standing right in their center. Everyone knew clearly that the Brewster family would be the most noble family in the Wind Forest from today onward. Vincent was standing in a corner. The Bay Billy family was also the focus of the conferring ceremony today. However, the gazes of the elves didn't stop at Vincent for long. They all landed on Blower next to him. Blower, who was wearing an aqua blue robe today, looked even more outstanding with his aloof and handsome looks. Even among the elves who were generally very good-looking, he still stood out among the crowd. This made many noble maidens' eyes widen as they glanced at him secretly. Nobody had expected that this third young master of the Bay Billy family who had a bad reputation was in fact very handsome. Moreover, he had a 7th-tier power just like Miss Sally, so he was also very gifted. Those elves who had initially thought that the Bay Billy family had attempted to punch above their weight started to reassess the situation again. Could it be that our Princess Sally really likes this Master Blower? Blower stood there with an aloof expression, but he couldn't hide the panic in the depths of his eyes. He, too, had received a letter that came from Chaos City last night. It was a very bold operation, but it matched Princess Irina's character to a T. His comrades among the Night Elves should be already making their move right now. After the elite forces were assigned to guard the conferring ceremony, all families' internal defenses were very weak. This operation might really succeed. Once the operation to free the slaves succeeded, it would definitely be an operation that cut the ground from under the elves' feet. A huge change would take place in the current structure. The lowliest base that was exploited would be completely removed, so how would the nobles react after they lost their slaves? This was definitely a tough problem for the rulers. He couldn't do anything right now. The entire Bay Billy family would lose their lives if his identity was exposed. However, a hint of coldness and sneer flashed across Blower's eyes as he watched those elven aristocrats laughing, joking, and showing off their extravagant clothes, servants, and slaves. All these things were going to disappear. He hoped these people wouldn't suffer too badly after they fell from their pedestals. Dong! A low chime of the bell rang, and Life Square gradually quieted down. There was a flash on the platform in front of the Tree of Life before Helena appeared on it. She looked down on the aristocrats below, and declared in a calm voice, "Today, I will be hosting the conferring ceremony of the princess on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen. We will be officially conferring Sally as the new elven princess." A white jade carriage pulled by 9 pure white unicorns stopped in front of the square. Sally, who was wearing an opulent silver long dress, emerged from it. Her gaze swept across the elves present and landed on Blower. She retrieved her gaze shortly after, walked down the white jade steps slowly, and proceeded to the platform gracefully. No wonder she is the elf chosen by the High Priestess. Princess Sally's grace is just like the Queen's. We, the elves, finally have our very princess again. This is such great news. The elves were looking at Sally with ill-concealed fervor in their expressions. Helena was also watching Sally with a relieved smile. The regret of her inability to control Irina would become history. She would groom Sally into the queen that she envisioned, and ensure the elves had a stronger future. Chapter 1428 Are You Worthy of It? However, most of the elves had forgotten that this music had once sounded over the Wind Forest, and was known as the sound of freedom. The Tree of Life's hundreds of thousands of branches were swaying downward gently as if they were reminiscing about the past. An excited gleam was flickering in Elliot's eyes. Every step that Sally took meant one step up in the status of the Brewster family. Among the 8 major families, the Brewster status was going to be really different from the rest when Sally became the elf princess. Vincent looked at Blower with a complicated expression. He was feeling a little guilty. Sally finally made it to the platform. She stood at the same height as Helena as she looked down with a calm expression. She wasn't ecstatic about her imminent promotion to the Elven princess. It was as if all this had nothing to do with her. Helena was looking at Sally with satisfaction. Even though Sally's power and talent were not as good as Irina's, her presence and attitude had already far exceeded her peers. This was also the reason that she had chosen her. She didn't have much time left, but it was enough for her to groom Sally into the elves' real queen. As for Elliot, a hint of derision flashed through Helena's eyes. Nobody could control the elven queen. She couldn't, and neither could this idiot Elliot. However, his and the Brewster family's presence would allow Sally to control all the families more easily. Helena raised her arms, and all the elves quieted down instantly. Only then she spoke. Her Majesty the Queen is still in her seclusion, but we couldn't leave the post of the Elven Princess hanging like this. Hence, today I shall host the conferring ceremony on Her Majesty's behalf, and declare Sally as the new Elven Princess under the witness of the Tree of Life. All the elves were staring at Sally with an intense gaze. Irina had insolently tried to overthrow the elves' system and bring them to the ground. Now, they were going to have a new princess who would lead them to extend their glory and let them continue to enjoy their high status. Helena's gaze swept across the elves' faces as she said in a cold warning tone, "After the princess takes her position, she'll give the order to hang all the traitors who tried to overthrow the Wind Forest to show our determination to defend the ruling authority and warn those bewitchers that those who resist meaninglessly will only be killed, and not bring any changes." Pity flashed across some of the elves' eyes, while others evaded Helena's gaze in a panic, but the majority of them had fanaticism and joy in their eyes. Everyone would know that the night elves who threw themselves into the dark were going to die today, but they hadn't expected that the order would be given by Sally. Helena's gaze stopped on Blower. Blower, too, didn't evade her gaze. He was looking back at Helena calmly, without any pity or joy, as if he had no reaction to Helena's words. A hint of astonishment flashed across Helena's eyes. She had investigated all the young people in the Elven tribe. She didn't notice much about this third young master from the Baybilly family who didn't have a good reputation. She only found out more about him after Sally requested to continue with her betrothal. Looking at him now, he was better than what the reports said. If he is obedient enough, he would be a good choice to be the male elf behind the queen. None of the youngsters in the elf race is good enough for Sally now. Helena pondered. Sally's fingers moved when she heard Helena's words. Although she remained calm on the exterior, it was obvious that her inner self wasn't calm at all. The transfer of power is usually bloody. If you want to gain the respect and support of those elves down there, you have to show them enough will and guts for them to stand on your side, Helena said to Sally in a voice that only the two of them could hear. Sally looked at her and said nothing. Helena didn't care in the least. She raised her right hand, and a beam of silver light slowly converged in her palm. A silver crown emerged on her palm, giving off glowing silver beams. The music stopped suddenly, and the square fell into silence instantly too. The elves looked up at that silver crown with an increasingly respectful gaze. The queen wore the golden crown, while the silver crown belonged to the princess. Wearing the silver crown would mean that Sally was the new elven princess, and had a noble status that was just below the queen. "Sally, come forward," Helena said to Sally. Sally looked at that hovering silver crown, and hesitated for a brief moment. Eventually, she still slowly moved in front of Helena. "Sally, are you willing to become the princess of the elves, and protect the Wind Forest and all our people?" Helena asked loudly, looking into Sally's eyes. Her voice reverberated throughout the interior and exterior of Life Square. Even those elves watching at the periphery could hear her clearly. All the elves held their breaths as they watched Sally, waiting for the historical moment to come. Sally looked at Helena and hesitated for some time before her gaze became resolute, and she nodded gravely. "I am willing to protect the Wind Forest and all our people." Her voice, 2, reverberated throughout the wind forest, and she specially emphasized the last 3 words. Very good. Then, I shall declare you the princess of the elves on behalf of the queen. You will take important responsibility to protect the elven race. Helena nodded slightly as she placed the silver crown on Sally's slightly lowered head with a solemn expression. The silver crown was glistening under the sunlight. Sally, standing on the platform in a long silvery dress, suddenly gained some noble queenly presence. In a trance, all the elves seemed to have seen the image of Irina. Princess Sally! Your Highness, Princess Sally! The elves in the square were kneeling as they paid their respects to Sally. Next, cheers erupted everywhere. They had just witnessed an historical moment. They finally had a new princess after Irina deserted the wind forest. A princess who would stand with them. Most of the elves had a relieved smile on their faces. It was very much in line with their expected development. Many years down in the future, they and their descendants would continue to rule this forest and enjoy a high status. Helena raised her hand, and the square slowly quieted down again. The elves slowly stood up, and looked at the Tree of Life with a fervent gaze. Every elven princess would receive the blessing and protection from the Holy Tree of Life and an enhancement of strength. The Great Tree of Life, your sincere believer and servant, prays for your testimony. Please acknowledge Sally's identity and become her guardian tree. Helena knelt in front of the Tree of Life and prayed sincerely. Are you worthy of it? A sarcastic voice appeared above the Tree of Life. Sally looked up with surprise, but she soon went white as she recalled all the traps that Helena had already prepared in advance. She began to tense up. The princess has indeed come. Blower looked at Irina, who was wearing white as usual, with a smile on his lips. This was the Princess Irina that he knew. Even when the whole world knew this was a setup for her, she would still come as long as she believed in it. She couldn't sit back and watch the night elves being executed publicly, so she had appeared here. Although it looked unreasonable, it was, in fact, very reasonable. Instead of living on in a silent degradation, isn't it better to leave our names in history? Blower whispered with his head tilted to one side. Vincent's pupils suddenly constricted, and his body tensed up uncontrollably. He looked at Blower's profile, and then at Irina at the crown of the tree. He was silent for a moment before he suddenly smiled. Very good. Blower turned his head to look at Vincent, and gravely said, Father. Him. Vincent only gave an acknowledgement in a low voice. Damned Irina, you have come to destroy our affairs again. Elliot watched Irina with his teeth tightly clenched. He waved his hand, and a few elves next to him quickly strode off. The elves in the square were looking at Irina with fear and disgust, but there was a glow in many young elves' eyes. There was even a hint of fervor in them. Irina, who was standing on the top of the tree, swept her gaze across Helena kneeling on the ground and those in the elves. She sarcastically said, You dare call yourselves the God of Life's sincere believers? Did the God of Life give you a revelation to enslave your own people or take the lives of your own people at will? Irina's words reverberated clearly throughout the Life Square and beyond it, reaching the ears of those elves who were barred from the square and those night elves held in the metal cages. Many elves lowered their heads in shame as they avoided Irina's gaze. There were also many elves who were staring at Irina as if she was a troublemaker who was trying to overthrow everything that they had. Princess Irina has actually come. The elves who were kept from entering the square were now looking at the top of the Tree of Life with shock. Although her identity as the princess was removed, and she was even labeled as a traitor, in most elves' eyes, Irina still had an irreplaceable position. Moreover, the Night Elves' declaration of freedom had indeed spread through the wind forest rapidly recently. Even though most of the elves were still keeping their distance from it, after hearing Irina's words, they began to look at those elves locked in the cages with pity and sympathy. The princess is here. The night elves who were locked in the metal cages finally had a change in their demeanor. They suddenly had a light in their eyes as they all looked toward the Tree of Life. They had not been deserted. Even when it was extremely dangerous, the princess had still come. Irina, this former princess, had appeared at the conferring ceremony of the new princess. Hence, how was this conferring ceremony going to proceed? This had become an issue that all the elves were very concerned about. Irina, you really came. Helena got up slowly and looked up at Irina. There wasn't any surprise in her gaze, but her expression was unusually cold. The whole world knew I was coming. Wouldn't I have disappointed this world if I hadn't appeared? Irina gave a dazzling smile to Helena. Then you should know very well what is going to happen to you when you've come here. Helena raised her hands, and complicated spell formations began to light up with the Tree of Life as their center. They formed many barriers that engulfed Irina and the Tree of Life within them. The 10th tier experts from the 8 major families appeared at the boundary of spell formation with their weapons and magic casters' staffs, and they were all looking at Irina nervously. Even more advanced elven magic casters began to appear at the spell formation's boundary with their magic casters' staffs, and aimed at Irina at the top of the Tree of Life with equally tense expressions. The elven race had put up all their race's power to deal with Irina. Such a battle array had never appeared in the elven race before, apart from the previous instance of the underground cavern siege. All the elves looking at this scene were astonished by High Priestess Helena's arrangement. Could this conferring ceremony have been an ambush aimed at Irina right from the start? Meanwhile, among the elves that were present, those young elves who were influenced by the idea of freedom began to tense up. They were interacting with their gazes in the midst of the chaos, attempting to do something. Irina was looking at Helena with a relaxed expression and a sneer as she said, "Helena, you're really feeling very confident in yourself. You have activated the entire race's power to deal with me. Then, isn't it a huge loss to the elves if you get rid of me? Aren't you afraid the elven race will be shamed by your actions?" Many elves lowered their magic casters' staffs instinctively after they heard Irina's words. There was a hint of shame in their address. Those 10th tier elves who were already very established also had shifty gazes. They had already lost all their face in the battle at the underground cavern. If the news of today's ambush got out, they, the elven powerhouses, would be utterly disgraced on the continent. Moreover, how could you all be so confident that you can kill me? Irina lifted her magic caster's staff up with a smile, and the Tree of Life suddenly glowed brightly with green light. The branches that hung down gently began to slowly rise up, and then swirled around Irina's feet like a green vortex. Green beams of light began to twirl around Irina as if they were adding on a green armor for her. They even formed a green crown on top of her head. Princess Irina. Princess Irina is the real princess that is recognized by the God of Life. Only freedom is the elves' faith and the revelation of the God of Life. The night elves in the cages shouted loudly with ferocity in their eyes. "My people, cages and shackles couldn't stop us from pursuing freedom. The God of Life blessed us with the abilities and talent to get close to nature. He gave us the life force to bring warmth to the world. I hope you all can find the real faith of life and understand what freedom really is," Irina said with a solemn expression before raising up her magic caster's staff, and chanted, "God of Life, please grant me the strength to cleanse all the darkness and shackles, and let all your people regain freedom." Irina's magic caster's staff was emitting a bright green light, and she looked just like a fairy who was standing upright at the canopy of the tree. A terrifying power was consolidating within the magic caster's staff. All the elves began to get nervous as they watched this scene. The Tree of Life was obviously still on Irina's side, and the tremendous life force proved that the God of Life still favored her. This made all the elves a little hesitant if they should act against her. Helena looked at the layers of spell formations that were burst open, and coldly shouted, "Irina betrayed the elves and colluded with the other species in an attempt to overthrow the Wind Forest. As the High Priestess, I order you all to kill her on the spot." "But, High Priestess, the Holy Tree of Life is right under Irina. If we launch an attack together, we might harm the Holy Tree," an elf reminded. All the elves started to look toward Helena. This was what everyone was wary about. The holy tree of life was the symbol of the elves and the only conduit connecting the elves to the god of life. If the holy tree of life was affected in the battle, no one would be able to undertake that responsibility. Helena looked at Irina, and coldly said, "How could you all be able to harm the holy tree of life? Irina has confused the holy tree of life and the god of life. We shall kill her today so we can return peace and harmony to the wind forest. That is what we, as the god of life's believers, should do." All the 10th tier elven magic casters were the first to raise up their magic caster's staffs and chant spells. All kinds of colorful light began to converge on the magic caster's staffs as they aimed at Irina. Although the other elves still looked a little hesitant, they still raised up their magic caster's staffs and bows, and aimed at Irina after they heard Helena's words. The elves in the square broke into a commotion. Irina, who had suddenly appeared, disrupted this conferring ceremony, and the elves couldn't wait to escape from the impending battle. Even a small shock wave from a battle of the 10th tier powerhouses could seriously injure them. Hence, many of the elves were running in the opposite direction in an attempt to get out of the epicenter of the battlefield. But, there were also many elves who were looking at Irina with a complex expression. The elves had directed a lot of expectations and emotions to her during all her years as the elven princess. They all believed that she would one day take over from the queen, and continue to protect the wind forest. However, no one had expected that she would stand on the opposite side, and become the so-called leader of the rebels. The sudden appearance of the night elves and the flag of freedom had ripped the elven race apart like a sharp knife. It wasn't just the elves from the base and the slaves, many among the nobles also began to have serious reservations, and even joined the night elves secretly. Therefore, when almost everyone was retreating, some chose to stay and even go against the flow. Protect the holy tree of life. You cannot harm the holy tree of life. Many ordinary elves who were blocked at the periphery of the square began to try to attack the cordon and push against those soldiers who prevented their advancement. If freedom was the faith that many elves had forgotten, then the god of life and the holy tree of life were the elves' inviolable faith. Sally stepped forward, and shouted at Helena and all the powerhouses, "The holy tree of life only has a tremendous life force, and doesn't have the slightest defensive ability. We had paid a terrible price in the past to protect the holy tree of life. If we attack the holy tree of life with all of our race's might, wouldn't we be destroying the holy tree and cutting off our connection with the god of life ourselves? The elven race would lose our faith in our guardian god forever. High Priestess, everyone, please tread lightly." All the elven powerhouses halted their movements when they heard that. No elves could withstand losing the protection of the god of life, and that was something they were not willing to do. Furthermore, Sally, who was about to be conferred as the new elven princess, said that, so the words carried even more weight. Helena looked at Sally with a meaningful gaze. Sally's eyes didn't evade her at all, and she looked at her with a worried look. "Helena, release all the night elves. I will bring them away and I will not pursue today's matter. If you insist on fighting me to the death, I wonder if you, the High Priestess, will be able to withstand the aftermath, causing the elves to lose the protection of the god of life? And how are you going to explain it to Her Majesty when she comes out of seclusion?" Irina said to Helena in a cold voice. "I've never been threatened," Helena answered coldly. "It's the smoke beacon. There are smoke beacons everywhere. Could this be a foreign invasion?" Right at that moment, the elves in the square finally discovered the black smoke that was rising up from every part of the wind forest. As they were so close together, the entire forest looked like it was on fire, and all the elves were plunged into panic. Blower looked at the thick smoke and lowered his magic caster's staff gradually. A hint of elation flashed across his eyes. The princess didn't disappoint them at all. It seemed like he didn't need to interfere today. The elves who were retreating stopped, and watched that scene with astonishment. As if they were reminded of something, excitement was flashing in their eyes. An elf in black robes appeared next to Helena, and whispered rapidly into her ear. Helena's expression darkened instantly. The worst had still happened. She used the whole race's might to attack Irina and Alex, who she had anticipated would appear too. In the end, she still ended up falling for Irina's plot. Irina looked at all the smoke beacons that appeared everywhere with a smile, and declared, "The elves never had slaves. The Queen has ordered to abolish the slave system and give freedom back to all the elves herself, but you all have completely ignored the Queen's order, and continued to enslave our people after she went into seclusion. Today, I am going to release all the slaves and give them their freedom back. If anyone dares stop me, that will be blatant disobedience." The nobles present all paled. Nobody was willing to take on the accusation of blatant disobedience. However, they were all worried about their domains right now. They were all used to being served. If they were to lose all their slaves and servants, they were not willing to withstand that, either. Kill her and then catch and hang all those fellows who attempted to overthrow order and resist. Helena ordered in a cold voice, and then raised the crystal ball in her hands over her head. The starry sky domain instantaneously engulfed Irina and the Tree of Life. Day turned into night and stars crowded the sky. F key to load the tank. Meanwhile, Mag was driving the mobile restaurant that had transformed into a giant tank, and was trying to crush a troop of elven soldiers who were pursuing a group of slaves. Chapter 1431. That man had finally come. After making sure that this giant that had a metal gleam was here to stop them, the elven troops attacked the tank. However, apart from creating some sparks on the tank's surface with magic and arrows, they didn't even leave a scratch on it. "This armor is so fearsome," the elven leader exclaimed. All the elves stared at the metal giant beast that was rolling toward them in terror. Helplessness and fear took over them, and they scattered away with no intention to pursue any longer. "These elves' psychological diathesis is worse than I expected," Mag mumbled as he looked at those escaping elves from the control room. "Host! You are recklessly wasting God's good gift. You're thrashing this system's great invention." The system's angry voice appeared in Mag's mind. "System, your tank is just an empty shell, right? It doesn't even have a button to launch a projectile round, isn't it a little low class?" Mag said disdainfully, and began searching through the control panel as he ignored the system's anger. No matter what form the mobile restaurant transformed into, it can function normally. The main cannon of this tank has a firing range of 150 kilometers. The accuracy within 100 kilometers is 100%, the system declared proudly. However, the host does not have the permission to activate the main cannon. Hence, the firing button is concealed. Ho ho! You don't have to bluff me. Don't tell me that it's concealed. If it is really so formidable, I will pay for 10 rounds myself to try if it really is as accurate as you said, Mag said with disbelief. Host, please do not doubt a meticulous system. Ding, 10 rounds of projectiles are delivered. Ding, 1 million copper coins are deducted. Mag looked at the red button that rose up on the control panel and curled his lips slightly. However, he still said with a disdainful expression, "Ha, then I will see if it is indeed that interesting." Mag drove the tank up a slope rapidly, and pointed the 5-6 meters long main cannon toward the Tree of Life. Following the close-up of the telescope, he could see all the elven powerhouses that were surrounding the Tree of Life. Hundreds of elves surrounded the Tree of Life, and all kinds of spell formations and magical screens had engulfed the Tree of Life and Irina. It was obvious that they were bullying her with numbers, and all the people who were not involved in the battle had evacuated. They're really very despicable. Then, I will try the cannon on you then. Mag aimed the cannon at Helena, and then pressed the firing button. Boom! A loud bang and a huge recoil made the tank shake backward violently. A fireball exploded at the cannon's opening, and the projectile flew toward Helena at a speed that couldn't be traced by human eyes. Krassu! Helena, who was holding up the crystal ball and preparing to launch the starry sky domain at Irina, suddenly turned around. Her pupils constricted when she saw a red fireball fly over at a high speed. She raised her hands to set a few defensive barriers in front of her. Boom! As soon as the barriers were formed, that fireball immediately arrived and crashed into them. The rotating spiral tip had actually pierced 3 barriers before exploding. A gigantic fireball rose up into the air. The huge power from the explosion crashed onto the starry sky domain from the outside, and caused the stable starry sky domain to shake violently. Signs of instability began to appear. Meanwhile, the aftershocks of the explosion rushed outward, and sent those elves who weren't prepared for them at all flying back. It almost cleared all the elves in that area. Before those elves could react, another 2 fireballs exploded next to the elves, and they fell from the sky like dumplings dropping into a boiling pot. The ambush formation was instantly disbanded. Right then, a holy light tore through the dark night and lit up the Tree of Life again. The tremendous life force transformed into Irina's power, and shot out at the surrounding elves. The elves who were unprepared for it were seriously injured. Mag retrieved his gaze from the messy battlefield, and focused at the elven troops which had begun to scatter everywhere. They should be under orders to suppress and arrest the resisting lowly elves. Therefore, he turned the cannon around, aimed at the clusters that had larger numbers of soldiers, and pressed the firing button. How is it? Isn't the power and accuracy of the tank produced by this system very powerful? The system said smugly. It's only so-so. There's nothing fun about it, Mag said calmly before keeping the mobile restaurant away and whistled. Ozzy descended from the sky. Mag leaped onto Ozzy's back, pressed the Tiandu sword at his waist, and patted Ozzy's back gently. Ozzy, it's time for us to show our faces. Remember to strike a handsome pose. Howl! Ozzy tilted its head back and let out a howl that reverberated throughout the entire wind forest. All the magic beasts in the forest went mute, and the entire forest was plunged into a choking silence. Terror appeared in all the elves' eyes when they heard that roar. This was a griffin's roar, and the only griffin that would appear in the wind forest now would have to be Alex's purple-striped griffin. That man had finally come. After the earlier round of firing, the combat power of the elves in Life Square had basically been eliminated by Mag. The elven healers were trying their best to save the injured. The purple-striped griffin's gigantic wings glided across the sky of the wind forest, and those elves who were pursuing the escaped slaves instinctively halted in their footsteps. Meanwhile, those elves who were still continuing in their deadly pursuit were torn to shreds by the purple-striped griffin. 1 human, 1 sword, and 1 griffin. They were hovering above the elves in the sky, and the troops dared not continue their pursuit. It had the imposing manner of 1 man can hold the pass against 10,000 enemies. On the other hand, with Mag breaking off the standoff and bringing great support to the Tree of Life, Irina managed to hold up Helena and the elves, and got them stuck. The elven slaves were freed from the cellars, and then they followed those elves who craved freedom in their dash to the south. The nobles' handsome steeds and magic beasts became their transportation, and war broke out in the wind forest completely. A massive escape from the wind forest was happening in every single piece of land right now. At the periphery of Life Square, the metal cages that held the night elves were smashed open, and young elves overpowered the guards. They carried those tortured night elves on their backs and quickly escaped. There were also some noble elves who brought their families and joined the caravan southward in the midst of the chaos. A single spark has already started a prairie fire, Mag lamented softly as he watched the scene. That person would definitely become the sinner of the elves, and no one knew what punishment he would face after the queen came out of her seclusion. The night elves rescued from the cages had successfully escaped with the help from the other elves. They rode horses and magic beasts, and joined the south-moving caravan. This was an uprising on a massive scale that almost blazed through the whole wind forest. There were even many noble elves taking part in the action, providing cover and helping the lowly elves to escape. And those private soldiers who attempted to pursue the elves stopped after Mag struck down the nobles leading them. Who was that? That was Alex. Nobody had the courage to face him without a 10th tier magic caster leading them. The escaping elves began to converge, and their numbers had already exceeded 10,000. Under the arrangements of the Night Elves' core members, they began to get into a formation. The elves who had no combat abilities were protected in the center, with elites leading the way in the front and covering their backs. They were no longer in a disarray. Although these lowly elves were mostly not too powerful, there were still plenty of 5th tier and 6th tier magic casters and archers among them. When there was a big number of them, the minor nobles who came with their soldiers had to stay away from them. After making sure that all the elves who left willingly had joined the caravan, Mag hovered above them on the purple-striped griffin's back and escorted them out of the wind forest toward the goblins' territory in the south. Yesterday, Irina wrote a letter to the goblins' chief, asking for permission to go through their territory. Although she didn't receive a reply, judging from their previous situation when they borrowed the underground cavern, passing through their territory shouldn't be a problem. As long as the Night Elves entered the goblins' territory, they were basically safe. The relationship between the goblins and the elves was not harmonious. Their friendliness toward the Night Elves was based on the idea of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. However, the goblins would never allow the pursuing troops from the Wind Forest to enter their lands. We've got to move faster. Mag looked at the sky above the Tree of Life that was dyed with all kinds of colors by magic with a severe expression. Although there was the reinforcement from the Tree of Life, he could still imagine the intense battle that Irina was experiencing right now. After stopping 3 troops of elven soldiers from getting close, and making sure that the elven leader could lead all the elves out of the Wind Forest, Mag turned around on Ozzy's back, and rushed to the Tree of Life. The intense sounds of explosions got increasingly loud and clear. Life Square had already been turned into a ruin with rubble and craters everywhere, and many high-ranking elves were moaning on the ground. And right at the center of that combat zone, Irina was standing just above the Tree of Life, holding her magic caster's staff. Holy light erupted every time she swung it. It collided with countless crashing spells before exploding amid dazzling sparks. The Tree of Life was emitting a dazzling green light as it formed an orb-shaped green barrier around Irina, and repelled most of the magical attacks, giving her a powerful protection. However, the light of the green barrier was getting weaker rapidly, as if it was going to burst open any time. Once the barrier broke, those countless magical attacks would land on Irina, and this battle would be over too. Helena had already received the latest situation report. The slaves' riots occurred very suddenly, and they almost took place simultaneously. This was completely beyond her expectations. Furthermore, Alex's obstruction had caused them to lose the chance to rectify the situation. Currently, the Wind Forest was in total chaos, so there was no way she could personally lead a troop into the goblins' territory to pursue those traitors. Irina, I was right about you. Compared to the other youngsters, your tactics and methods are already more mature than Her Majesty the Queen's then. Helena looked at Irina with regret in her eyes. She had once pinned high hopes on her, and even now she didn't announce the fact that she had a child with Alex. If the Queen wants to blame someone, then let her blame me. In order to protect this forest from invasions happening ever again, I will have to kill you today, Helena said with a cold expression. She reached into the crystal ball in front of her, and slowly retrieved a pure black magic caster's staff. Her presence instantly became as deep as the starry sky. The starry sky domain that was torn apart by holy light began to consolidate again, and the stars started to light up and move across the sky. Looking at Irina's fragile barrier, the eyes of the elves taking part in the combined attack lit up. Their efforts were indeed still effective. Helena has indeed concealed her power. Princess Irina may not be able to hold on any longer. Vincent at the periphery of the battlefield watched Helena draw out her black magic caster's staff, and then looked at Irina's barrier that was about to crumble. He grabbed Blower, who was about to rush forward, by his arm, and stuffed an amulet into his hands. He looked into his eyes, and said in a low voice, "Our people should be already in the caravan moving southward. I don't expect you to make them rich and prosperous, but I hope you can lead them to a life of freedom. Leave this to me. Go now." "Father." Blower stared at the chief's amulet in his hands, and then looked up at Vincent as his eyes became red immediately. "Let me be the one to leave our name in history." Vincent pushed Blower hard, and then retrieved the silver longsword at his waist. He leaped onto a white eagle that dove down, and then dashed toward Elliot, who was the closest to him. He was a rare 9th tier knight in the elf race. And at the periphery of the battlefield, dozens of elves that were hiding rushed toward the center of the battlefield, knocking their arrows and lighting up their magic casters' staffs as they attacked those elves that were attacking Irina. Bam! Right then, the barrier that the Tree of Life provided for Irina finally shattered after withstanding countless magical attacks. "Thank you for waiting." Right at that moment, a low voice exploded next to all the elves' ears as a purple lightning flew over from the sky afar, and dove straight into the starry sky domain, aiming at Helena. It appeared in front of her in an instant. The Tiandu sword was unsheathed, and the razor-sharp blade tore open the pitch-black starry sky domain before swinging downward at Helena, who was raising her magic caster's staff above her head. The purple-striped griffin also revealed its sharp claws and swiped at Helena. An obvious hint of panic flashed across Helena's eyes. It was very dangerous for a magic caster to let a close combat knight get close to her. Numerous one-time magical barriers appeared around her, and the magic caster's staff that was pointing at Irina was retrieved, and then pointed at Mag as she shouted, "Falling stars!" Although it looked like a hot knife cutting through butter, nobody knew that Mag's hand that was grasping his sword was already trembling underneath his robe. He only had a 9th tier power now. Even though hacking 10th tier magical screens had sparks flying all over, only he knew the pain within. Hence, when there were only 3 thin but toughest layers of the screens left, he suddenly stopped and pressed gently on Ozzy's back, and made it glide across Helena from the side. Almost at the same time, 3 silver meteors crashed down on the spot where the griffin was at previously, leaving 3 big craters on the ground. Meanwhile, after the purple-striped griffin avoided Helena, it dashed toward a 10th tier elven magic caster who was consolidating his power nearby. It sent him flying with him, watching it coming right at him with his terrified gaze. Even when he had set 3-4 magical screens in that very instant, he was still sent flying hundreds of meters backward. He was completely buried after he crashed into a big patch of trees. The purple-striped griffin transformed into a purple lightning, and dashed amongst the elven magic casters like a wolf in a herd of sheep. With the purple-striped griffin's immense speed and power and Mag's talking down, they had completely disrupted the combined attacks formation. The elves who were good at magical attacks panicked at entering close combat. They couldn't even manage to protect themselves, so they could no longer attack Irina effectively. "Vincent, are you going to betray the elven race with your whole family?" Elliot took a few steps back and smirked at Vincent, who was holding his longsword, with elation in his eyes. "Princess Irina is right. The elven race doesn't need any power or ranks. What we truly need is to return to our true nature and freedom. Without them, elves would be no longer elves." Vincent grabbed his sword with both hands as his sharp gaze became fixed on Elliot. "I think what you all are doing now isn't right, so I am leading the Baybilly family back onto the right path. This is not a betrayal. This is a correction." "Ha! Since you chose to stand on Irina's side, that means you have declared the demise of the Baybilly family. In this case, the betrothal between Sally and Blower naturally no longer stands." Elliot pointed his magic caster's staff at Vincent and smirked. "Then you shall die along with your family." The space was frozen immediately, and the ice burst magic killed that white eagle instantly. Vincent landed on the ice lightly. He tapped on the ice lightly as he evaded the countless icicles and exploding ice orbs. He swung his sword to slash open the ice wall in front of him, and then closed up on Elliot rapidly. Similar melees were taking place on the battlefield everywhere at the same time. Those elves that chose to support Irina attacked those elves ambushing her without any regard for their own safety. They were relentless even when they were not strong enough. Blower grasped the amulet, and retreated with red eyes. "Go!" Sally suddenly appeared beside him. She grabbed his wrist and pulled him into the forest at the side. The princess will definitely find her way out of here. You have to leave right now. Otherwise, you won't be able to escape after the princess and Alex leave, Sally said to Blower. A battle of this scale is already beyond our control. However, today will definitely be written into the history books of the elves. Blower calmed down gradually, and said to Sally, "What about you? Are you coming with us?" Sally shook her head. "I am going to stay. Although the slaves were liberated, there are still a lot of problems with the elven race. I'm still useful to Helena, so maybe I could still make some changes for the elves. Take care." After casting a final glance at Sally, Blower turned to leave. "Oh, yes. Say hi to Boss and Amy for me. I rather miss the taste of the rainbow fried rice," Sally said softly. "All right." Blower didn't turn around, and swiftly disappeared in the forest. Sally looked at the direction in which Blower had disappeared, and softly murmured to herself. "Perhaps, we can only meet again after a very long time." She looked at Alex dashing in and out of the elven crowd on the griffin's back 7 times. Would the one meant for her eventually appear? Or maybe all she wanted was a warm man who could cook. Even though the battlefield was in a mess, Helena still had the upper hand. She quickly gained control of the civil unrest, and stabilized the situation with her advantage in manpower. "Go now, princess," an aged elf shouted at Irina while he was pierced through the heart by many arrows instantly. He collapsed to the floor with his eyes wide open. Similar scenes were happening everywhere on the battlefield. They weren't strong, but as they were determined to buy time for Irina to escape, they were prepared to sacrifice their lives heroically. Mag chopped off an arm of a 10th tier great magic caster with a swipe of his sword. He turned to look at those dead elves who sacrificed themselves heroically yet silently with a solemn expression. He looked at Irina, who was trying to assist those elves from the crown of the Tree of Life again. He turned the griffin around and flew toward her. "Let's go!" Mag shouted as the griffin flew close to the Tree of Life. Irina hesitated for a brief moment before leaping onto the griffin's back. "We should go now." Mag looked at those elves who were surrounded again with a sunken heart. Darkness had descended again, and the starry sky magic was getting stronger. Irina answered with a sorrowful expression. "Ozzy, let's dash out of here," Mag said as he grasped his long sword with both hands and slashed it forward. A tear was ripped in the black screen. "Ow!" Ozzy let out a long howl before spreading its wings, and dashing out from the tear. Mag flicked a glance backward, and he saw an elven knight chop off Elliot's arm. He was also pounced on, bombed, and buried by magic almost at the same time. He had read about this knight from the elves' information. Vincent, the patriarch of the Baybilly family, a timid and overcautious elf, and Blower's father. The purple-striped griffin burst out from the gap in the starry sky domain, and swiftly flew southward. The wind forest, with the smoke beacons burning all over, seemed to have just gone through a calamity. There were burned and damaged buildings everywhere. Change is never a simple matter. Mag tilted his head and softly consoled Irina, who was silent. Irina answered softly. She then hugged Mag gently from the back, and burrowed her face in his back. The giant rock that was placed across the canyon was shifted, and a smooth path was revealed. The night elves who were right at the front had been already instructed by Irina. They led the caravan into the canyon, and went through it rapidly. The caravan of almost 20,000 elves completely entered the canyon soon. The goblin soldiers swiftly sealed the canyon, and faced the direction of the wind forest alert and combat ready. A purple-striped griffin glided by above the canyon, and followed the elves southward. "Boss, the person sitting on that purple griffin must be Alex, right? Besides him, who has another purple-striped griffin? Who could make Princess Irina hug him? Hey? Boss, you sounded a little jealous. Piss off." The elder goblin slapped the younger goblin's hand away, and retrieved his envious gaze. He grasped his longbow tightly and stared at the elves hovering on the other side of the border. The atmosphere at the border became rather tense. However, this standoff didn't continue for too long. After 30 minutes, the elves seemed to have received the order to retreat. Although they looked very indignant, they still quickly left the border. After making sure that the wind forest didn't choose to continue the pursuit, Mag heaved a breath of relief. Looking at the elves below, he commented, "I wonder if Chaos City will take in so many night elves? Once they do, it will mean completely breaking off with the wind forest. This is Michael and Roland's issue. If they're not willing to take them in, then I will find a place outside Chaos City to be the Night Elves' base temporarily." With these 20,000 elves, the Night Elves already have enough confidence to survive in this world, Irina said calmly. She wasn't worried at all. That's fine too. Mag nodded. The elves' field survival skills were incredible. As long as they stayed away from the wind forest and avoided going head-on with the main elven military force, their survival wouldn't be a problem at all. You will return to cook lunch for little Amy and Anna first. I will follow them southward to prevent any trouble, Irina told Mag. After some pondering, Mag nodded. That's a good idea. Then I will leave Ozzy to you. The purple-striped griffin stopped at a nearby mountain's peak. Mag leaped off the griffin's back and watched Irina go away before summoning the mobile restaurant. He boarded the mobile restaurant that was in the flight mode, and clicked open the automatic return mode before he closed his eyes to rest. 20,000 elves was a big number, and it obviously wasn't practical to recruit all of them into the factory. He had to seriously consider how to make arrangements for them so that the Chaos City's residents wouldn't be annoyed, and the elves wouldn't feel aggrieved, either. Where did Boss go? A maiden with cat ears was looking very hard into the restaurant through the French windows, cupping her face with her hands. However, she couldn't see inside the restaurant through the usually transparent window at all, and nobody was answering the doorbell. "What are you doing?" a voice said behind her. Whoa, Connie got a shock. She turned around, pressed herself against the window and looked at Mag, who suddenly appeared, with a terrified expression. "Why did you suddenly appear, boss? I've already been here for quite some time. It's you who was too engrossed." Mag shrugged and helplessly looked at Connie, who had changed into a long cotton dress and was wearing a mask. "Isn't today an off day? Did you lose your sense of time together with your sense of direction too?" "No, I knew today is the day off." Connie removed her mask and blushed. She swiftly shook her head as she looked at Mag with a hesitant look. After checking that nobody was around, she went up to Mag, and whispered, "There's something I want to tell you. Can we go somewhere alone for a while?" Mag looked meaningfully at Connie, who was blushing very hard. Was this lass really going to confess her love? Although she was a cute cat-eared maiden, and her body was soft and easy to overcome, he was a married man, and was not in the least interested in little girls. "Come on in," Mag said as he opened the restaurant's door. Connie quickly caught up with him, and closed and locked the restaurant's door. Mag glanced at the locked door and then at Connie, whose embarrassed expression slowly evolved into a weird smile, and her shy gaze began to glow with enthusiasm. He had a bad feeling about this. "Come on," Mag said, crossing his arms. "Come? Where are we going?" Connie was stunned as she looked at Mag perplexedly. Ahem. Mag also realized that there was something wrong with his expression. Furthermore, didn't this lass want to? He cleared his throat. "Did you want to tell me something?" "Yes, I do have something to tell you." Connie's eyes lit up as she looked at Mag with glowing eyes and slowly got closer to him. "Boss, I have something that I wanted to say to you for a long time, but I never got a chance to. Today, I have to tell you, try to talk in a proper manner. There's no need to get so close. I can't even see your face." Mag was already forced into a corner unknowingly. He looked down at Connie, who hadn't even reached his shoulders. Because she was so close to him, he could only see her pinkish-white cat ears. Because Mag's breath was too hot, that pair of pinkish-white cat ears twitched and then blushed. "Can't see me? Am I that short?" Connie was a little angered as she jumped up and placed both her legs and hands against the wall. She was now half a head taller than Mag, so she smugly said, "What about now? I can see you now. Say it." Mag looked at Connie, who suddenly trapped him against the wall using a cicada block, and nodded with an exasperated smile. This maiden's train of thoughts was indeed rather different. However, this was such an intimate position. Could this maiden be thinking about? Connie stared at Mag for a long as her face became redder and redder. Her limbs began to tremble after holding on for a long time. A drop of cold sweat slid down her forehead, and then landed on Mag's shoe. Mag was getting tired as he stood pressed to the wall, so he consoled her, "It's all right, just relax. There's a first time for everything. Just say it bravely." She was just a little girl, so he should be more considerate. He even placed his love letter in the wrong drawer when he confessed his love for the first time in the past. In the end, he was called a jerk for a whole year by the little fat girl who sat next to his love interest. Life was always so unexpected. I forgot what I was supposed to say." Connie's arms lost her grip, and she fell off. "Good person card +1, all right, all right. You have your reasons." Mag didn't want to argue with this maiden. After all, this wasn't the first time that she had forgotten her lines. He asked Connie, "Why don't you sit down and wait for lunch, and then you think about it properly?" "That's a good idea." Connie nodded before she went to find a chair. She sat down and began to ponder seriously. Mag looked at Connie, feeling rather exasperated. He flicked a glance at the clock, and it was already 11 a.m. It was time to prepare lunch. He had already showered on the way back, so he simply went upstairs to change into his chef's suit before he went back to the kitchen. "I remember, boss." Connie suddenly dashed to the kitchen's entrance and blocked Mag. Then, she raised up her right arm, and said, "Look at my hand." Mag peered at Connie's right hand. Although her fair and chubby fingers were a little short, it still looked rather cute. He nodded. "The fingers are a little short, but it's all right. It shouldn't deter you from eating." "No. It's this." Connie suddenly clenched her fist, and 3 razor-sharp white claws sprung out from her knuckles like daggers. They were about 20 centimeters long each. Wolverine. An idea instantly popped up in Mag's brain. Compared to Wolverine's black blades, Connie's white claws looked much gentler. In fact, they looked more like a cat's claws. However, the blades pointing downward were still very sharp. Connie waved her claws, and smugly said, "Isn't this very cool?" "Yes, this is quite cool." Mag nodded. This seemed like a new talent that Connie had just discovered. However, she behaved so secretively by locking the door and trapping him against the wall. Did she do all that just to show off her little claws? "Actually, what I want to say is, I am going to leave now." Connie retrieved her claws. Her expression became sullen as her voice lowered. "Leave?" Mag was a little stunned. "Where are you going?" he asked Connie, who was looking down. "Actually, I've never told you all the truth. I came from the Orcs folk tribe. I'm the daughter of the folk tribe's chief. My uncle, Gary, started a rebellion. He killed my father and mother, captured my big brother, and took over the folk tribe. I am the only one who got out," Connie said to Mag apologetically. "I heard Gary is going to kill my brother 8 days later and proclaim himself the new chief. I have to go back to save my brother." Mag had already known about all this, including the fact that Gary was a powerful 10th tier orc. He looked at Connie with a frown. "Can you even do it?" "I am very formidable now. I could sneak into the 18th level of Basti prison without getting caught." Connie nodded. "No. I'm just worried that you would get lost at home." Mag sighed. But I grew up there, Connie glared, but she didn't look very confident. Although I did get lost occasionally, that was rather rare. If you are going to rescue your brother, are you going alone, or is your master going with you? Mag continued to ask. Of course I am going alone. Master said I have to do this alone. He is an outsider, so it's not appropriate for him to get involved, Connie replied as matter of fact. However, there was a hint of helplessness in her expression, and her shoulders stooped down unconsciously. Mag placed his hand on Connie's shoulder with a smile, and said, I think we should discuss this matter with everybody. You're a part of our restaurant, so I believe everyone would be willing to help you. But, Connie looked up. But today is an off day, so let's discuss this when everybody is here tomorrow. Your opponent isn't one single bad guy, it is a group of bad guys instead. If you choose to fight alone, we might not even be able to get your body back. Mag shook his head, interrupting Connie's words. Boss, Connie looked at Mag, who had a warm smile on his face, and movingly said, you really are a good man. Ding! Good person card +1. The system's voice sounded in Mag's mind. Mag pulled his lips, feeling a slight toothache. Then, let's agree on this. I am going to cook lunch, and you will go to the ice cream shop to ask them to come back for lunch. Mag went into the kitchen. He had been thinking about how to handle Connie and the Fok tribe's matter lately. He had come up with many plans, but he hadn't decided which one to use yet. However, Connie's intention to return to the Fok tribe to rescue her big brother had given him some new inspirations. All right, Connie answered, and walked toward the door. Mag poked his head out to remind, turn left after you walk out of the door. You will get into the prison if you turn right and climb over the wall. So, don't turn right out of habit. Connie, who was about to turn right after she walked out of the door, quickly halted. She touched her ears, and then awkwardly turned left. Shortly after, Amy and Mia came to the restaurant. Amy dumped Ugly Duckling onto a chair nearby, and searched through the restaurant before curiously asking Mag, Father, where is big sister Irina? Her? She might have gone out. We will have lunch without her first. Mag smiled. It would at least take 2 days to travel from the Wind Forest to Chaos City, even if they were riding unicorns. Irina had to escort the Night Elves southward, so she definitely wouldn't be back today. Oh! Amy was a little disappointed, but she still went to wash hands obediently, and then sat at the table. Boss, the ice cream shop's menu hasn't been refreshed for a while now. Could we add some other things in? Something like a dessert? Mia asked Mag when they were eating lunch. About this, Mag pondered. He really didn't have a dessert that he could add to the menu. However, he still hadn't utilized a 100% chance to win a top-tier recipe at the wheel yet, and he had no idea what he would get out of that. Hence, he could only shake his head. Currently, I don't have any great ideas for desserts yet. Let me think about it first. All right. Yabimiya nodded, and didn't pursue the matter. After lunch, Amy and Anna followed Mia to the ice cream shop again as there were many children they could play with. So, Mag was left in the restaurant alone. All right. Let me see what top-tier recipe I will get from this wheel. Mag closed the restaurant's door and sat down on a chair. He went into the wheel's interface in his mind, and looked at the one chance indicated there. He used his thoughts to push hard on the wheel. The wheel began to spin, and the words on it gradually got clearer and clearer: Sichuan Mapo Tofu, Westlake Fish in Vinegar Gravy, Feilong Chicken Soup, Wu Vai Smoked Duck, Dongpo Pork, Steamed Multiple Preserved Hams, Sichuan Style Spicy Chicken, Dongan Chicken, Steamed Wuchang Fish. No. System, didn't you say it is a top-tier recipe? Could this sliced beef and ox tongue in chili sauce be considered as a top-tier recipe? Mag cocked an eyebrow. Although he didn't mean any disrespect for the dish, Compared to Buddha jumps over the wall, this didn't seem to be par with it. Host, the cruelty level of this Sichuan cuisine classic sliced beef and ox tongue in chili sauce 1 is only second to wife cake 2. It has an extremely high and unique status in Sichuan cuisine, and an authentic great sliced beef and ox tongue in chili sauce is second to none. Did you use real husband and wife? Mag asked. System. Sliced beef and ox tongue in chili sauce, Mag murmured softly when he opened his eyes. He wasn't really disappointed. The restaurant didn't have marinated dishes yet, and he could also show the chowhounds in this world the depth of Chinese cuisine. However, whether this dish would trigger some bad associations, that would be beyond his control. Mag looked up at his watch. It was still early, so he decided to do some reading upstairs. The mystery of the Great Old One still engulfed this world, so he needed to seek more inspirations from the Thulhu mythos. Ding! Right then, the bell at the door rang. Don't the customers know that today is an off day? Mag raised his eyebrow. Out of courtesy, he still went to the door. He looked out through the peephole, and then opened the door in astonishment. Gloria was standing at the door. He asked, "What are you doing here, Miss Gloria?" Gloria presented a golden invite to Mag with both her hands and smiled. "Mr. Mag, I've specially come to give you the invitation. It's the Chamber of Commerce's year-end celebration the day after tomorrow. As one of the board members, I can invite some friends to join me. I hope you and everyone in the restaurant could come for the event." Mag received the invitation. He was so busy recently that he had forgotten all about that. Gloria had said before that she would like to invite him to join her, so naturally he couldn't reject her now. He nodded. "Sure. If there's nothing happening on that day, we will definitely go. I look forward to your and everyone's coming." Gloria smiled before she bid her farewell and left. Miss Gloria is a commercial genius. However, I wonder how she is doing with the board now. Mag mumbled as he watched Gloria go away. However, he didn't think too much about that, because he didn't have the extra energy to help her now. "Young mistress, the Dodges should be already plotting with Marquises, and they will be standing on Cyril's side at the year-end celebration. They will vote to remove your seat on the board of directors." Mars was sitting across Gloria with a black notebook. He continued, "We need to go see board members Thompson and Cassis in the afternoon. Our chances would be better if they chose to stand on your side." "All right." Gloria nodded before pondering. "However, I need to make a trip to Teacher Luna's in the afternoon. I've promised to supply the second batch of winter wear, and I need to confirm the children's garment sizes. I heard there was an increase in the number of children. We should be able to meet all of them." Mars nodded as he looked at Gloria. The business talent and growth rate that young mistress had displayed had amazed him, but it was most gratifying that she didn't lose her kindness. Gloria was silent for a while before she suddenly asked, "Mars, do you think we will fail? No matter from which point of view, you're already very successful. Even if you couldn't continue to be the Chamber of Commerce's board member and the heir of the Moreton family, you and the blue suede fashion that you founded would still become a great company. It could even surpass the Moreton family's current achievements in the future." Mars smiled. "Really?" Gloria looked at Mars with astonishment. "The premise is that you have to maintain your current passion and serious attitude towards your career." Mars nodded. "I think I will." A confident smile appeared on Gloria's face. Mars also smiled at Gloria. His father had assisted Master Geoffrey in the past. Now, he might be on the same path. In a luxurious private room, the dim light shone on the faces of men and women drinking and fooling around. Cyril was hugging a blonde girl as he raised his wine and gestured to everyone. "For our friendships. Cheers! Cheers!" Everyone raised their glasses. "Young Master Cyril, you will be the Moreton's only heir after Gloria is kicked out at the year-end celebration. You will be the patriarch of the Moretons and the president of the Chamber of Commerce. We will all have to depend on you in the future, a rotund middle-aged man said with a smile. Everyone else in the private area was also trying to butter him up. All the praises got to Cyril's head and he nodded. All right. As long as we succeed 2 days later, Cyril, won't forget you all. Ha! You are still too young to fight with me, Gloria. I will chase your whole family out after I become the chief of the clan. You guys are nothing without the Moraton family's protection. Cyril smirked in his heart as he drank his wine and hugged the woman in his arms. He seemed to have seen the scene where Gloria was deposed in the year-end celebration 3 days later. Night had fallen, and Mag was telling Amy and Anna a bedtime story. After the 2 little ones were asleep, he switched off the lights and snuck out of the room. He was going to catch up on his reading. You have another woman's scent on you. A cold voice came behind Mag just as he closed the door softly. Whoa! Mag got a fright. He turned around, and saw Irina sniffing all over his body. There was a hint of danger in her beautiful eyes. Mag was amazed with Irina's nose's sensitivity. He took out that invitation proactively, and explained, Miss Gloria came by and gave me an invitation this afternoon. She was inviting me to take part in the Chamber of Commerce's year-end celebration on the day after tomorrow. You didn't join that Chamber of Commerce, so why is she inviting you? Irina glanced at that invite. The woman's scent had come from that. Perhaps because I am her chief designer and business partner. As a board member of the Chamber of Commerce, she's entitled to invite some friends along. Ha! Maybe that's because she has no friends. Irina chuckled. Mag actually didn't know how to refute that. He kept the invite, and asked, have the night elves arrived at Chaos City already? No, I found a place for them to rest first. Because of the huge numbers, they will most probably arrive on the day after tomorrow. Irina shook her head before seriously saying to Mag, I'm starved. You, go make me some scrumptious food. All right. What do you want to eat? Tell me. Mag nodded smilingly and walked toward the staircase. I will have a beggar's chicken first. I saw many wild chickens on the road today, Irina said without thinking. What a poor chicken. Mag raised his eyebrow as he observed a minute of silence for the chicken that took the wild chicken's place. One transliteration, husband and wife lung slice. 2. A traditional Cantonese pastry with a thin crust of flaky pastry, made with a filling of winter melon, almond paste, and sesame, and spiced with 5 spice powder. If we could let them settle down and earn their living through working at a dignified job, this is quite a good idea, Irina said after a moment of pondering. Then, I will go take a look at the land tomorrow. Mag nodded. Most of these elven slaves were not powerful, and neither were they good at fighting. Hence, it was obviously impractical to ask them to put on armor and fight against the Wind Forest. They couldn't even be considered as cannon fodder on the battlefield. It's fine. I will go to the city lord's castle directly. I am very wealthy now. Irina shook the space magic bracelet on her wrist. I was bored on my journey yesterday, so I went back to clear 2 of their gold vaults. This is overstuffed now, so I gotta make some space for it. You turned back. Mag was amazed with his wife's skills and guts. He simply wondered who was that unlucky lord. Not only did all his slaves escape, he lost his gold too. That's good too. I will gradually finalize specific projects in the next few days. Let's make sure they have a place to stay first. Mag agreed on the second thought. People were going to be suspicious if he got too deeply involved. Furthermore, the most important aspect of this matter was whether the city lord's castle would agree to it. After all, the number of elves was huge this time round. Irina went upstairs to wash up after dinner, and she quickly fell asleep as she was exhausted. Mag went to read in the study before returning to his room, and lay on his bed. He intended to master the sliced beef and ox tongue in chili sauce tonight. He clicked open the shiny experience bag, and all the experiences of making sliced beef and ox tongue in chili sauce went straight into his mind, and were rapidly absorbed and digested by him. About 10 minutes later, Mag pushed open the door of the test field for the god of cookery. Royal Father. At the top of the tower, Sean, who was in his military gear, bowed as he greeted Andrei, standing at the window. You have just returned from the northwestern border, so have you heard about the elves? Andrei asked as he turned around to Sean. His gaze was still fixed on his dusty armor. Sean nodded. I have already heard about it on my way back to the palace. There's a civil strife in the Wind Forest, and the slaves have rebelled. They are already traveling southward under Irina's protection. What do you think about this matter? The elves' constitution must be greatly undermined by this event. What's even more important is that they're no longer united. Irina has a unique status among the elves, and she has fallen out with Helena publicly while gaining the support of many lowly elves. After this battle, she already has the capital to go head-on with the Wind Forest, Sean said to Andrei in a low voice. Your son believes the elves no longer have the capability to be Roth Empire's ally. Maybe we could invade the Wind Forest with our cavalry during their civil strife now, and then rule over the elves. Oh! A hint of surprise appeared in Andrei's eyes. Royal Father, please forgive your son's recklessness. Sean panicked as he realized he had made a wrong comment. It's fine. Andrei lifted his hand, and instead smilingly asked, how many troops does the Roth Empire need to send to take over the Wind Forest if we are going to invade the elves? If we take advantage of the Wind Forest's state of anxiety now, we only need 100,000 of the Northwest's elite cavalry along with 5 10th tier knights and 5 great magic casters to launch a surprise attack on the Wind Forest. We could conquer the Wind Forest within 10 days, Sean replied after a moment of pondering. Haha! You've vastly underestimated the Wind Forest. Andrei chuckled, but he was looking at Sean with an increasingly satisfied gaze. The demons sent 300,000 allied troops to invade the Wind Forest then, and yet they couldn't even reach the Tree of Life. Although the Elven Queen has gone into seclusion, you shouldn't think she is already dead. Sean lowered his head, and humbly replied, yes. I didn't consider every aspect well enough. Andrei turned back to look at the starry sky out again before he suddenly chuckled. But that is possible if we double the number of people. Sean suddenly looked up with a gleam in his eyes. However, why should we act against them? They're simply a bunch of people who have learned a tiny bit of our stuff. We will let them entertain themselves in normal times, and use them as cannon fodder when we need them. Isn't that better? Yes, Sean replied thoughtfully, and nodded respectfully. Andrei lifted his hand. You're exhausted too. Go back and rest now. When you're free a couple of days later, go to Chaos City to fetch Vanessa. Vanessa is in Chaos City. Sean was a little taken aback, but he soon regained his composure and agreed respectfully. Then, he left this tower that was on par with the Magus Tower. Sean does indeed resemble me more, but he's still too overconfident and needs to be polished, Andrei said softly after Sean left as if he was murmuring to himself or talking to a person. The President's office at the top of Magus Tower. What do you think I should do now, President? This B***tch Helena didn't listen to me, and now Irina has already gained 20,000 elves, and is no longer fighting alone. Josh smashed the crystal glass in his hand in a fit of anger as he talked to Richard, who was sitting across him. His complexion was sickly pale, and his eyes were bloodshot as if he hadn't had a good rest. Richard cleared the crystal shards on the floor with a wave of his hand, and then said to Josh in a low voice, Your Highness, you should remain calm, especially during a time like this. Otherwise, how are you ever going to achieve anything great? You must remember that you are the one who is going to be the king of the Roth Empire. How could you lose your cool over a woman? But I feel indignant. Why does Alex, that useless freak, get to have her? I'm obviously better than him in every aspect, but she kept slipping through my fingers. And I have already maimed him. Josh said through clenched teeth with indignation written all over his face. Richard snapped his fingers, and a water droplet flew toward Josh. It exploded on his face just as if a glass of cold water was splashed over his face. He said in an icy cold voice, "Your Highness, you have to know that everything in this world will be yours if you become the king of the Roth Empire. If you fail, you will not only lose Irina, but everything you own now, including your life. And people like us who are following you have pinned our hopes and lives all onto you." Josh shivered after being splashed by the cold water. He suddenly became sober after looking at the somber Richard. He quickly stood up and bowed respectfully like a student as he sincerely said, "Master, your student knows his mistake now." Trash! Gary threw the plate next to him at that orc after hearing that, and furiously said, "A bunch of useless fellows. You all can't even catch a little girl. Of what use are you all to me?" That orc's head was smashed by the stone plate, and he bled profusely. However, he didn't dare to hide or move back a single step. He simply knelt on the ground nervously and motionlessly. "It's fine that we failed to catch her. She is just a useless girl. What could she do?" Gary soon calmed down, and revealed a smug smile on his face. "I will be the real chief of the Fok tribe in a few days' time. After killing that lovely nephew of mine, I will be the only heir." Early in the morning, Mag woke up and switched off the ringing alarm clock. He swiftly went to wash up and change into a clean chef's suit. He then arranged his hair in front of the mirror. After making sure that he looked clean and neat, he went downstairs to make breakfast for everyone. Everyone began to arrive at the restaurant. During breakfast, Mag told all of them, "Before we start eating, I would like to discuss something with you. I would like to see what suggestions you all have. Is Father going to make something nice again?" Amy asked curiously. Everyone looked at Mag curiously. Recently, he had been frequently releasing new items. "No. It's about Connie." Mag shook his head with a smile, and gestured to Connie sitting at a side. Connie stood and waved to all of them awkwardly before sitting down again. Mag was also rather befuddled by her awkward gesture, but he decided to continue. "Connie told me yesterday that she is going to leave." "Leave? Where are you going? Are you going home?" Babla looked at Connie nervously. They had gotten along quite well lately. "Yes, Connie. Where are you going?" Mia and the rest were all looking at Connie too. Connie opened her mouth and looked at all of them, but she didn't know how and where to start at that moment. Mag raised his hand to gesture for them to quiet down first before he continued, "Let me say it. This is what happened." He told all of them about what happened to Connie briefly and her intention to return to the Fok tribe to rescue her big brother and kill the enemy who killed her father. After hearing Mag's words, the restaurant fell into silence instantly. Everyone was looking at Connie with a sympathetic gaze, but they didn't know how to console her in that moment. "I thought it was something big. Since you already have a target, plan, and time, just fight your way back." Irina ate a spoonful of tofu pudding before saying to Connie, "You're not their match? I will help you." Connie looked up at Irina with glowing eyes. She had the urge to call her boss. Don't. Such actions are not popular now. We want to be harmonious now." Mag quickly stopped her. She almost spoiled the whole plan. "Yes. Isn't it simply a prick uncle? He has a lot of men, our restaurant has a lot of people too." Babla nodded too. She placed a hand on Connie's shoulder, and seriously said, "I will help you beat him up too. I want to go too." Gina put her hand up. "If you are all going, count me in then," Camilla said calmly, picking up her bowl of congee with pork and century egg. Mia put up her hand. "Although I'm still not very formidable now, I can still carry all of you there." "Count me in too," Elizabeth said coldly. She had long wanted to beat up a bad uncle, and she could take this as a practice. Amy put up her little hand, and seriously said, the assassin is prepared. Everyone, Connie looked at all of them who had pledged themselves with red eyes. Tears were already glistening in her eyes. Mag said to all of them, since everyone has already declared their intentions, our Mamie restaurant will send out a special operations team for Connie's brother's rescue mission. Jane, Rena, and Anna belong to non-combat personnel, so they are excluded from the combat unit. We have to come up with an operation plan for the rest of us to complete the rescue mission with the premise of protecting ourselves first. Boss, shouldn't you be considered as part of non-combat personnel too? Mia asked. Everyone began to look at Mag. Although Mag had always given them the impression of wise and strategic, if considering his combat abilities, he was indeed just an ordinary man who knew how to cook. Mag lamented. It was all because he had been concealing his abilities all this time. Now, it became a problem to prove that he could be of help. He couldn't be telling them that he was Alex, right? Even though he can't fight, his arguing skill is comparable to 3 10th tier great magic casters. Irina chuckled softly. Everyone nodded after thinking about that for a moment. If it came to reasoning, nobody was the boss match. Mag. What could he do? He was in despair too. His eligibility to participate in the battle was actually obtained with his arguing skill. The Fok tribe is the number 2 tribe among the Orcs. Although their power has decreased because of the coup, they still have 3 10th tier powerhouses. We only have a few days to prepare, and we need to set up a complete plan. Don't say a word of this matter to anyone else. I hope all of you remember that, Mag said to all of them severely. After the breakfast service was over, Mag rode his bicycle to the city lord's castle. After the guards made his presence known, he was swiftly invited into the city lord's castle and brought to Michael's office. Princess Irina just left, and then you arrived, Boss Mag. Michael got up from behind his desk and chuckled at Mag. Mag's mouth twitched. This wily old fox's words had a hidden meaning. However, he continued to speak with a calm demeanor. Oh, really? I didn't hear the princess say that she was going to come to the city lord's castle at breakfast. Michael made a gesture for Mag to take a seat before he smiled. You still may not know, Boss Mag. Princess Irina did something great yesterday. She came to purchase a piece of land from me this morning, preparing the base for 20,000 elves to settle down in Chaos City. This is good news for Chaos City. After all, quality talents like elves are rare. The other cities don't even have the chance to attract them there, and yet they came to Chaos City of their own accord. They even buy their own land to build their housing. That is rather rare. Mag was smiling too. I agree. The city lord's castle happens to need money after building the railway. Princess Irina is offering us timely support. Michael nodded in agreement. City lord, I didn't come here to buy land today. I came to discuss the Fok tribe's matters with you. Mag didn't continue to joke with Michael, and got straight to the point. Michael, too, stopped smiling, and asked, has Boss Mag come up with a good idea about this matter? I need a proper excuse for the employees of Mamie Restaurant to appear at the Fok tribe's chief's conferring ceremony, Mag said. Mag was certain that this batch of machines could complete their spinning mission, and their efficiency was at least 100 times that of the normal weavers. However, because the elves had no idea how to use these machines, they left them idle. They were currently practicing their archery and magic under their captain's, Ashley's, lead. Mag found Ashley. The captain was rather storky when compared to the normal elves. She was one of Irina's most trusted elves, and was also the existence that restrained the night elves' behavior and trained them whenever Irina left them on their own. How can I assist you, Mr. Mag? Ashley asked. She was always very respectful to this human who had given plenty of assistance to the night elves. Mag smiled. It's like this. I plan to teach you all how to use the machines in the factory today, so we use the machine to spin efficiently. Then, the factory will be able to start its operations. Please give me a minute to gather the night elves. Ashley turned to walk away. Wait a section. Mag quickly stopped. He took 2 steps forward and shook his head. There's no need to assemble everyone now. Because the restaurant is rather busy now, I would like to teach 10 elves who are nimble and have good memory in a small group first. They will then teach the other elves after they are familiar with it. All right. Please wait here for a moment, Mr. Mag. I will go get 10 elves right now. Ashley nodded and strode away. Soon, she returned with 10 elves. Mag took a closer look at those elves. There were 5 males and 5 females, and their power was all above 6th tier. They were considered rather exceptional as the night elves in the factory had rather low power, after all. Do you think they are suitable, Mr. Mag? Ashley asked. Of course. Ladies and gentlemen, please come with me. Mag swiftly nodded. It was just spinning fabric, and if a group of 6th tier and 7th tier elves were not good enough, wouldn't his requirements for weavers be a tad too high? Mag brought them into the manufacturing workshop. They went to the boiler room first. Mag introduced the steam boiler, and explained the steam engine's principle of operations that drove the boiler to them. May I ask, can we really make those metal monsters out there move by burning a fire in here? A female elf asked curiously. They had seen how humongous those machines were earlier. Yes. This is the wonder of the steam engine. Mag nodded with a smile. However, he didn't explain too much of the scientific fundamentals to this group of magic casters. After making sure that the 3 male elves who were in charge of burning the boiler were taught how to operate it and given a boiler manual each, he brought the rest of the elves to the manufacturing workshop. Mag was just like a teacher. He explained to the elves how to use the textile machine to turn the cotton wool into bales of complete cotton cloth. Mag didn't show any emotions outwardly when he sensed all their gazes of admiration, but he was still a little smug. Although he was standing on the shoulders of giants, it showed that he hadn't forgotten all that stuff that he had learned earlier. The operation and explanation are roughly like this. I hope all of you have remembered them. However, if you all want to be qualified weavers, you will still need to be continuously honed on the assembly line. Mag smiled at all the elves. Hence, we will start a formal operation now. Although the elves were rather surprised that Mag let them try it out so soon, they still quickly returned to their respective positions according to their previous arrangements. Can I bother you to start burning the boiler in the boiler room first? Mag said to the elf in charge of the overall planning. That elf quickly left, and black smoke soon began to appear from the boiler room's chimney. Steam poured into the workshop through the pipeline and into the cylinder of the textile machine. Accompanied by the sounds of the catching of gears, the steam spinning machine began to move. The cotton wool that was tossed into the spinning machine's mouth was swiftly swallowed up. The sophisticated and complicated machine moved back and forth, and fine cotton yarns began to appear. They spun around a spool themselves, and they soon filled up one spool fully. All the elves present were staring at this scene with their eyes wide open. It was only after some time that an elf reacted and went forward to remove the spool of yarns that was done, and wrapped the cotton yarn around another wooden spool. Oh, this is so incredible! We just have to toss the cotton wool into that opening, and the machine will spit cotton yarn by itself. Furthermore, it is much more delicate and softer than the cotton yarn spun by ordinary female workers. An elf drew out a cotton yarn, and was amazed by it. Yes. Such yarns could make very good cloth, and they should sell for a very good price, right? What's most terrifying is its spinning efficiency. Even the most skilled textile worker isn't 1% as fast as this machine. Furthermore, we don't have to do much. All we have to do is to toss the cotton wool in, and change the spool after it is full of yarns. All the elves were discussing excitedly. At first, they were wondering what these metal chunks were for, and they finally saw these big guys in action now. These machines could actually spin even more delicate cotton yarn than female workers. All the elves had abandoned their doubts, and all they had now was admiration for Mag. What kind of amazing machine was this? With them in existence, were those textile workers going to lose their jobs? Mag picked up a spool of yarn to have a closer look. The quality of the yarn was indeed rather excellent, with an even thickness and a soft texture. He could see that the machine was very stable. Watching the machine spin out spools of cotton yarns, Mag suddenly realized the introduction of these yarns might have a devastating impact on the textile industry in this world. This world was still in the state of the low efficiency of the primitive single cotton yarn spinning. The steam spinning machine was equal to jumping 2 big steps forward by leaps and bounds, and leaving the entire world behind them. While the production efficiency is improving, the labor costs have dropped sharply. This is going to have a disruptive impact on this industry. This seems to be a rather good dagger for that unassailable empire. Maybe I could try giving it a stab. Mag pondered with a smile on his lips. The Roth Empire was this world's largest textile producer. 70% of this world's cotton yarns were manufactured in the Roth Empire. Those landowners who controlled countless weavers and textile workers had relied on this to amass a great deal of wealth. Chapter 1440. Tonight I am playing with my daughter, closed for the day. Irina didn't return for lunch at noon. She should have gone to the north to continue escorting the elves on their journey southward. After lunch, Amy went to Mag, and softly asked, "Father, can you bring me to a place tonight?" "Where to?" Mag asked. "To Jessica's. It's her birthday today. I want to bring an ice cream cake to her house to celebrate her birthday and give her a surprise," Amy whispered into Mag's ear secretively. "I told this only to you. So it's Jessica's birthday today." Mag suddenly realized. Mag rather liked that pretty little girl with short hair. She was also one of Amy's good friends. Looking at the expectant Amy, he nodded after thinking for a brief moment. "All right. Then we will go give her a surprise with an ice cream cake tonight." "Father, you are fantastic." Amy hugged Mag around his neck, and gave him a kiss hard on his cheek. She ran around the restaurant with her arms open, and then sent Ugly Duckling, who jumped at her excitedly, flying through the air with a kick. Meow! Ugly Duckling stuck onto the wall with a splat before it slowly slid down. It looked at Amy with an aggrieved expression. "You can't blame me for that, Ugly Duckling. I didn't see you coming at me." Amy shrugged innocently before disdainfully saying, "However, I really think you should slim down. You seemed heavier than usual when I kicked you." Meow. Ugly Duckling covered its eyes with its paws before flipping backward, and lay on the ground flat. Even though it was a little abrupt, as a father, of course Mag would try his best to accommodate all his daughter's wishes. Hence, before the lunch service started today, Mag wrote a notice and then put it out. "Tonight I am playing with my daughter, only the designated hot pot area is open." The customers were staring at the notice hanging on the door with a weird expression. "Although it seems all right, I still feel something isn't very right. That is the little boss. You know nothing, nor do you dare to ask about anything. That's a very super adorable daughter. If she was mine, I wouldn't be opening a restaurant. What's wrong with playing with her every day?" Although the customers felt a little aggrieved, they couldn't say anything when they thought about the adorable little boss. "But I want to eat grilled fish," a weak voice said, but it was soon ignored. In the afternoon, Mag custom made an ice cream cake for Jessica personally. The figurines in the center were based on Jessica and her mother, and they were both smiling. "I'm back." Amy pushed open the restaurant's door, and placed her school bag behind the counter. She immediately ran to the kitchen where Mag was putting the ice cream cake into the box, and she expectantly asked, "Father, is the ice cream cake ready?" "See, it's already packed. We can just bring it along with us." Mag raised the ice cream cake box up to show her. The pink box was tied with a very cute big bow. "I saw it earlier. It's a very adorable ice cream cake." Mia joined in with a smile. "Why don't you hold the birthday party in the restaurant?" Then we could have the pretty and delicious ice cream cake too. Connie stared at the cake in Mag's hands regretfully. I will make a cake for all of you tomorrow. Mag smiled before he picked up the cake, and took Amy out. A long line had already formed in front of the restaurant's entrance. Everyone was looking with an aggrieved expression at Mag, who came out with a cake, especially those ladies who failed to have their tofu puddings. Enjoy your meal, everyone. Father and I are going out to play. Amy followed Mag out of the door. She grabbed one of Mag's fingers, and waved her right hand at the crowd with a smile. She's so adorable. Everyone was looking at Amy, who was wearing a small magician robe with 2 buns on her head and 2 dimples on her face, with glowing eyes. Their tiny bit of resentment toward Mag also disappeared instantly at that moment. Well, such a cute little precious. What's wrong with spending time playing with her? Isn't this what he should do? Hence, Mag flagged down a horse-drawn carriage very smoothly, and went away with Amy. I finally got it. Boss Mag already began to use little boss cuteness to stop us from blaming him, Harrison lamented with a sigh. What else could he do? He could only eat the hot pot tonight. The carriage stopped in front of the miners' family's settlement. Mag paid the coachman, and then alighted with Amy with the cake in his hand. Did you prepare a present for Jessica, Amy? Mag asked as he took Amy's hand in his. I did. Amy nodded. She took out a gift box that was simply wrapped from the magic caster's staff. Krasu and Urian had designed and added in a storage function when they made the magic caster's staff. Therefore, the magic caster's staff also became Amy's giant pocket. Let's go. Mag smiled as he looked at Amy, who was hugging her gift seriously. He, too, was a little curious about the gift that the little one had prepared for Jessica. The houses and roads in the miners' family's settlement had been rebuilt. The environment and the people had been rectified too. He could finally see smiles on the people walking on the road. Mag and Amy stopped in front of a house whose door was tightly shut. It's here, Amy said as she went up to knock on the door gently. After a while, a little hole opened on the door, and a bright eye flashed across it. Then, the door was quickly opened, and a surprised Jessica with her mushroom-shaped bob hair said, Amy. What are you doing here? Happy birthday, Jessica. Amy walked up, hugged Jessica, and smilingly said, I remember today's your birthday, so I brought Father here to celebrate your birthday. Happy birthday, Jessica. Mag smiled at Jessica, who was tightly hugged by Amy. Chapter 1441 Silly, if you say your wish out loud, it won't come true. Okay. Mag walked in with the cake. Although the house was still rather run down after the renovation, at least there was a wooden table with 4 benches in a good condition in the room. Mag placed the ice cream cake on the table gently. It seemed that Rebecca and Jessica were having dinner. There were still half a bowl of rice and 2 simple boiled vegetable dishes on the table. Father made you an ice cream cake. Why don't we have the cake first? Amy said as she pulled Jessica's hand. All right. Jessica nodded. With a smile, she said, it's my first birthday with a cake. You must have spent a lot of money, Rebecca said, feeling bad while clearing the table. She had been hearing news about Mamie restaurant recently. There was news of hundreds lining up at the restaurant every day and of dishes that cost hundreds of copper coins. To her, all this seemed like a completely different world from the one she was living in. Today was not the restaurant's day off, so to have Mr. Mag bring Amy over with a cake to celebrate Jessica's birthday meant a lot. Little Amy and Jessica are very good friends. I'm also quite surprised that she would remember her birthday. Of course we should celebrate her birthday together, Mag said with a smile. He was really quite shocked since the little fellow would usually only think of food, so he didn't think that she would actually remember her friend's birthday. After Rebecca cleared the table, Mag put the ice cream cake at the center of the table, and opened the box to reveal the cake inside. Wow, what a beautiful cake! Jessica's eyes lit up when she saw the exquisite cake. What made it a more pleasant surprise was the two small figurines on the cake. They were her and her mother. She looked up at Mag, and said, "Uncle Mag, this is so impressive. These two figurines really look like me and mother." "Yeah, it's so lifelike." Rebecca was also looking at the two figurines curiously. "According to our tradition, making a wish and then blowing out the candle will make your wish come true," Mag told Jessica with a smile as he lit up the candles. "Will it really come true?" Upon hearing that, Jessica closed her eyes earnestly. After a while, she opened her eyes, and then blew out all the candles in a breath. "Jessica, what wish did you make?" Amy asked curiously. "My wish is to be best friends with Amy forever," Jessica said with a smile. "Silly, if you say your wish out loud, it won't come true." Amy stroked Jessica's head with a pampering smile, and said, "However, I can help you fulfill this wish. We will definitely be best friends forever." Jessica also smiled joyfully. "Oh, right. I have to give you the present I prepared for you." Amy took out the present, and passed it to Jessica. Jessica received the present. After Amy told her to open it up, she opened the box to reveal the golden conch inside. "Wow, it's beautiful. Is this a conch from the beach?" Jessica's eyes lit up as she picked up the golden conch the size of both her hands gleefully. The conch was a bright and glittery gold all over, as though it would light up on its own. Amy nodded, and said, This is the prettiest conch I found at the beach. If you put it by your ear, you'll be able to hear the sea." "It's true. I can hear the sea." Jessica looked at Amy with surprise after putting the conch to her ear. "I love this present. I love the sea." "Thank you, Amy." "You're welcome. I am very happy that you like it," Amy said with a smile. She put the conch by her and giggled. Mag smiled at the scene. The two little fellows built their friendship under very harsh conditions. It would be very beautiful if they could really stay like this forever. After removing the candles, Jessica and Amy cut the ice cream cake together. The two little fellows ate the cake happily, and talked about the happy children's things. Rebecca looked at Jessica, who was full of smiles, and her eyes started to turn red. "Madam Rebecca, are you still adapting fine at Blue Suede?" Madam asked with a smile. "Yes. Miss Gloria is a very kind employer. My work at Blue Suede has been my best job yet." Rebecca nodded. Mag looked at the smile that came out naturally, and could tell that she really liked this job. After staying for almost 2 hours at Jessica's place when the two kids were done playing, Mag left with Amy. "Father, I'm very happy today," Amy said joyfully as she lay on Mag's back. "Then should I play with you more often in the future?" Mag said with a smile. He walked down the street while piggybacking Amy. There were almost no horse-drawn carriages on the streets. "All right." Amy's eyes lit up. She then thought for a while and shook her head, saying, "No, that way, all the uncles and aunties who are coming for the delicious food will be very upset." "It's all right. I will try to make more time for little Amy next time." Mag felt a little sorry for being so busy with all the other things in the restaurant. He really didn't spend enough time with Amy. "It's all right. Amy will be very happy to eat the food father makes every day," Amy said softly with satisfaction. Mag continued walking forward with Amy on his back. They didn't see any horse-drawn carriages even after walking down a few streets. "Help! Help!" Just then, a horrifying shriek came from the alley beside. Amy shot right up and looked around. "Father, I think there's a bad person bullying a big sister at the side." She pointed to the little alley on the right. "Let's go take a look." Mag ascertained the direction where the sound came from. It was the dark little alley on their right, and they walked over quickly. The shrill came from quite a distance away from them. It sounded as though the person was running away, or she was being kidnapped. Why can't you wear it? No, don't come over. Please, don't come over, a horrified female voice came from somewhere. It sounds like it's behind. Amy had already pulled out her magic caster's staff, and she pointed at the alley on the right excitedly. Yes, it's that direction. Mag nodded. He put Amy on the ground, and walked quickly and silently over. Just then, a small figure suddenly dashed past on top of a high wall at the side. The figure ran past Mag, and jumped off the high wall like a nimble little cat. You, suddenly, the voice of a horrified male voice sounded, followed by a crisp sound of a sharp object hitting the wall. However, the fighting sound stopped suddenly, and there was a sound of something heavy falling to the ground as another horrifying shriek broke the silence. Ah! Mag brought Amy over to that alley, and saw a tall orc with his pants halfway down lying on the ground. His hands were covering his throat, where blood was gushing out from. His eyes were wide open, and it was apparent that he was no longer breathing. The fatal wound was the one to his heart. It was a very clean and professional method of killing. Although the orc could react in time, he still did not manage to show any effective resistance. Meanwhile, a young girl with her clothes all untidy was cowering in the corner, shivering. A small silhouette's back was facing Mag. A few drops of blood were dripping from the sharp claws that came out from her knuckles. She looked a little embarrassed as she consoled the young girl, "Are you all right? The bad guy is already dead. I should be the good guy here." The young lady looked at her, dumbfounded, and her fear was suddenly reduced by half. Mag found that silhouette in black very familiar, and he was shocked to see the pink and white cat ears. "Big Sister Connie, what are you doing here? Have you lost your way again?" Amy asked in shock. "Boss! Little Amy! What are you two doing here?" The small orc girl turned around, and seemed even more shocked to see Mag and Amy. She said with embarrassment, I just came out for a walk. I'm not lost." "Really? I almost believed it. We walked past here on our way home," Amy said. She glanced at the orc on the ground. "But you've already killed the bad guy. Now we have no bad guy to beat up. What a pity. We heard a lady's shriek when we walked past the alley outside. That's why we came in," Mag said. He took off his coat and walked to the human young lady cowering in the corner. The young girl looked barely 13 or 14 years old. Her clothes had been ripped apart, and there was even a red handprint on her pale face. Mag covered her up gently with his coat, and said, "Little girl, don't be afraid. I am Boss Mag from Mamie Restaurant. This is my daughter, Amy. This lady who saved you is an employee from our restaurant. Let us send you home." The coat that still had Mag's body warmth dispelled the chill and embarrassment from the torn and tattered clothes. The young girl looked up at Mag. This gentleman's smile looked very warm and gentle. There was also an angel-like little girl beside him. Suddenly, she did not feel so afraid. Besides, Mamie Restaurant? Isn't that the very famous restaurant? This gentleman is the owner of that restaurant? The young girl stood up slowly with the help of the wall. She reached out to grab the collar of the coat. Her pale little face still showed some fear as she tried to avoid looking at the corpse lying on the ground. "Let's go. Let's leave this place first." Mag turned to the side a little to block the corpse from the little girl's view. He made a soft glow on the tip of Amy's magic caster's staff, and led the young girl out into the streets. Connie retracted her claws and followed behind Mag quickly, afraid of being left behind. Mag turned to the little girl on his right, and gently asked, "What's your name? Where do you live?" "Kelly. My house is just up in front, past 3 alleys, the young girl said softly as she pointed in front. "All right. Don't be afraid. That bastard deserved to die anyway. We'll send you to your doorstep." Mag looked at the young girl, who was still shivering a little, and felt upset. Even in Chaos City, sexual assault was still a risk that girls had to face. I shouldn't have gone out at night. I just wanted to buy a sweet for my younger brother, Kelly said with a whimper. Kelly, you're not to blame. It's those evil scumbags who are at fault. Mag paused in his tracks, and looked into Kelly's eyes. It's your freedom to go out at night. That should not be the reason for those scumbags to harm you. Kelly looked into Mag's eyes and was a little lost, and a little touched. She had never heard anyone say that before. She had always heard people saying, wrap yourself up and don't go out at night. It seemed as though the reason for all crimes was because they wore a skirt that showed their calves, or because they did not reach home before nightfall. Yes, skirts are so pretty. Why can't you wear it? The stars are so beautiful at night. If you stay at home, you won't get to see them. Amy nodded, and said, as for the bad guys, just beat them to death. Kelly looked at how confident Amy was, and could not help but feel a little envious, for she did not even have such courage. However, it seems like there are quite a lot of scumbags around here. I've seen quite a few these days, Connie interrupted. Kelly remained silent. She would often hear stories of unfortunate things happening to girls living in the slums. A weak young girl like her would be completely incapable of resisting when she met with sexual assault from other races. Don't worry. This will change. Girls will be able to wear a skirt without worrying, and they can also look at the beautiful starry sky, Mag said with a smile. He already had a plan. Since the city lord cannot do anything about the nighttime safety of the people living in the northern slums, he would do something about it. He sent Kelly to her doorstep. When she was just about to knock, the door opened, and a small boy of around 1 to 2 years old toddled over, and dived into Kelly's embrace as he called out to her. Here's your sweet. Kelly released her clenched fist, and passed an ordinary sugarcane sweet to the little boy. Sweet? The little boy grabbed the sweet happily as he licked it. Kelly, what happened to you? Who are they? A middle-aged woman and man walked out quickly from a room and saw Kelly, who had a coat on, with her hair all messy and a red handprint on her face. They immediately stood in front of Kelly, shielding her from Mag. Chapter 1443 Burn that trash. The man went in to get a chopping knife, and said to Kelly, where is that bastard who dared to bully my daughter? I am going to fight it out with him. The bad guy is already dead, Amy said. The man and woman were stunned. They started looking at Mag differently. Thank you for saving Kelly. Please, come in and have a sit, the woman said gratefully as she bowed deeply. I'll buy some alcohol. The man scratched his head as he put the chopper behind him. It's all right. We just happened to pass by, and did what we should. Mag smiled and shook his head. He continued, that fellow deserved it. You don't have to be afraid. However, since there is a murder case, the Grey Temple and City Lord's Castle will investigate the matter. If they look for you, just tell them to come for me at Mamie Restaurant. Mag rejected their warm reception. He left with Amy and Connie after Kelly changed and returned him his coat. Are you out for live training? Mag asked curiously as he looked at Connie's full black outfit. Connie nodded proudly, and said, yeah. Master told me that there isn't much meaning for me to keep practicing breaking in and out of Basti prison, so he told me to come over to the city's north to do some live training on some jerks. I've already killed 10 such bastards today including this one. I see. Mag was a little surprised at Rex's training method, but it was not a bad idea, since they could rid this society of vermin through the training. Wow, big sister, that's really impressive. Amy gave a thumbs up, and eagerly said, can you bring me along next time? I'm also very good at beating up bad guys. Connie was a little hesitant. She looked at Amy, and said, although I would like very much to bring you along, I have to run on top of the walls, and I'm afraid you might not be able to catch up with me. It's all right, you can run on the walls. I can fly. Amy spread her arms out, and a pair of translucent wings appeared on her back. Her wings flapped gently and she started to fly, even circling around Connie nimbly. With a smile, Amy said, "Look, isn't this super convenient? Wow, is little Amy a little flower fairy?" Connie said, surprised and envious, as she looked at Amy, who was suspended in mid-air. With a nod, she said, "If that's the case, there's no problem at all. Little Amy, come down." Mag beckoned Amy. Amy kept her wings, and landed nicely in Mag's embrace. "You can't use your wings so casually, all right?" Mag whispered to her, and looked around cautiously. Amy's wings were given to her by the Pope. Although the Church's influence in the Roth Empire was not great, such a supernatural gift felt more like it was of another level. Therefore, he didn't want Amy to show her wings in front of others for the time being. "Oh!" Amy shrugged. She was a little disappointed, but she quickly looked at Connie, and said, "I still have my wind-fire wheels. Even though they might be a little more eye-catching at night, it would be no problem to keep up with your speed." "All right. Then let's go together tomorrow," Connie said with a nod. Mag looked speechlessly at the two who agreed to beat up bad guys. He did not feel right to stop such a positive agreement. As he walked along the street, Mag asked Connie, "Are you going back with us, or are you going to continue training? It's too early now. I'm not tired at all. Besides, now is the peak period for those scumbags to act. I intend to keep watch on this area for a while more. You guys can go back first." Connie shook her head, and leaped onto a high wall at the side. She waved goodbye, and quickly disappeared into the night. Amy watched Connie leave as she opened her mouth to speak. "You want to go back to sleep? You have lessons tomorrow." Mag continued walking forward with Amy in his arms. After walking for a short while, Mag managed to hail a horse-drawn carriage, and they took it back to the restaurant. When they got back, they happened to meet Irina, who came back from outside. "Mother!" Amy let go of Mag's hand, and leaped into Irina's embrace. Irina picked Amy up, and then looked at Mag, saying, "I'm hungry." "I'm hungry too." Amy raised her little hand. "All right. I'll go make supper now." Mag opened the restaurant door with a smile, and poured 2 cups of warm water for them. After that, he went into the kitchen. Amy lay in Irina's embrace as she told her mother all about Jessica's birthday celebration and the bad guy they met. "Oh, I didn't know there are so many bad guys in Chaos City. That's interesting." Irina's eyes lit up after hearing Amy's story. "Mother, should we form a team to beat the bad guys up?" Amy suggested excitedly. Irina nodded, and replied, "Sure. Why don't we get everyone at the restaurant to go beat the bad guys up together? We can take it as training." "That's not a bad suggestion," Mag agreed as he peeked his head out from the kitchen. Why didn't he think of such a constructive idea? He thought for a while, and said, "If that's the case, we will need a uniform and a very cool team name. What do you think? We're just beating bad guys up. Is there a need for all that?" Irina scoffed, and said, "Why don't we call ourselves the Anomaly Judges? The FFF Gang?" Mag raised his brow. "Then we would still need to prepare black robes and chainsaws." Irina thought for a while, and said with a nod, "It sounds pretty good. What about our chant? Burn that trash." Amy raised a torch. That's not bad." Irina's eyes lit up. "Then should we catch all the baddies and burn them to death? That way they won't be able to harm innocent big sisters anymore." Amy nodded. Mag smiled. He returned to the kitchen to finish cooking. To oppress the baddies, they had to use force, and if the need arose, they had to show them their prowess. The next morning, people from the Grey Temple arrived. "Mr. Mag. An orc was murdered in the northern part of the city yesterday. According to our investigations, you and your employee are involved in this case. We hope that you can provide us your assistance in our investigation, a young inspector said to Mag, who opened the door. Chapter 1444 Gentleman's League. Mag closed the door behind him. He looked at the young inspectors, and hesitated to speak. Mr. Mag, we've already gotten a rough grasp on the situation. The orc who was murdered yesterday was a convict that we had been after. He had claimed 7 lives, and last night he was stopped and murdered while sexually assaulting a young lady. The person who did it was an employee from your restaurant, and you were also at the scene last night, is that right? The inspector who had spoken previously began. Mag raised his brow. That sounded as though that fellow deserved it, and they were just getting rid of a vermin. Mag smiled and nodded. Yes. The 3 of us were in the northern part of the city to celebrate the birthday of my daughter's friend. On our way back, we heard cries for help, so we rushed over to the scene. My employee had no choice but to kill him in order to ensure the safety of the young lady, because he was too aggressive. I thank you for stepping out bravely to protect the citizens of Chaos City. There have been many cases of perpetrators of sexual assault being stopped in the northern part of the city recently. I assume your employee is related to these cases. Can we meet her for a while? We are about to begin choosing this year's top 10 citizens. We were thinking of applying for a spot for her, that inspector continued. Mag raised his brow, and said with a sigh, she is a very meek lady, and is afraid of attention. I don't think it's suitable for her to appear among the top 10 citizens. She isn't even willing to face people with her true self. If you think what she did wasn't wrong, let her continue doing it. But, she has a little problem up here. Mag pointed to his head, and lamented, she's such a great young lady. She should have a beautiful youth, but if she suddenly received too much attention, I'm afraid it would worsen her condition, or even. The 2 inspectors exchanged glances, and hesitated for a while before one of them said, all right, since that is the case, we will not force you. Please help us convey our gratitude. If you need any help, do inform the Grey Temple immediately. Sure. This way, please. Mag nodded, and sent the 2 inspectors off. Father, what's wrong with Big Sister Connie's head? Amy, who had been watching by the side, asked curiously. Dementia that came too early, Mag said with a sigh. However, he could not hold back his laughter. Although Mag had expected the issue with the Grey Temple would be resolved smoothly, it still showed that the Grey Temple was agreeable with citizens taking it into their hands to stop violence. After the morning operating hours, Mag brought a letter of commission to the Mercenary Union. He walked straight into the Union building, and arrived at the mission area. The staff behind the counter was busy, and there were many people filling in mission forms. Mag followed the line, and arrived in front of the counter. The staff member passed him a form without even looking up, and said, hello, sir, please fill in this mission form and choose the type of mission you want, the specific requirements, mission date and time, as well as the specific reward you want. All right. Mag took a pen, sat down in front of the counter, and started to fill in the form. After around 5 minutes, Mag passed the form over, and said, I'm done. Please take a look and see if there's anything else I need to add. The young staff member glanced at Mag's form, and her eyes lit up. It was the first time in her 3 years working here that she saw such beautiful handwriting. However, after taking a close look, she let out a soft gasp and looked up at Mag. Is anything the problem? Mag asked with a smile. No, are you sure this is what you want to commission? That staff member asked. She sounded a little awkward. It was the first time she saw someone commission something like that. Yes. I want to start a gentleman's league. I want to commission all the rich and chivalric mercenaries and residents to protect those who need to be protected, to do their best to eliminate all the ruffians who make use of the darkness of the night to harm the weak. I am willing to pay this amount as the reward. Mag nodded with a smile. Is this against the regulations? Upon hearing Mag's words, many people who were filling in forms at the side looked up in shock at him. That was an unexpected commission. This is the first time I've come across such a commission. Please hold on for a while. I'll have to ask my manager. That staff member was a little uncertain, so she quickly informed Mag and left. A while later, the staff member came back with a tall and skinny middle-aged man. Boss Mag, I didn't think it would really be you. That tall and skinny man smiled immediately when he saw Mag. I didn't think you were from the mercenary union. Mag also smiled at the middle-aged man, Cartera, who could be considered one of the restaurant's regulars. He would dine in the restaurant every other day, and his favorite dishes were the beggar's chicken and the beef kebab. I heard that you want to set up a gentleman's league to help eliminate assaulters. Cartera asked Mag. Yes. I met one who was trying to sexually assault a young lady yesterday. Such a thing happening in Chaos City really shocked me. I hope Chaos City could become better. I want the city to be safe, even if the sunlight could not shine into the night, even if it was in the slums, even if it's amongst the lower class and ordinary people. I hope that everyone can be respected and protected. Mag nodded seriously. Cartera's smile faded away, and his expression became serious as well. Isn't it great that a man could think this way? The female staff member standing at the side was looking at Mag in a completely different light. She had already unconsciously started to admire him. At the same time, the people who were filling in the forms at the side slowly put their pens down and looked at Mag thoughtfully. Of course, I am willing to fork out this amount as the reward. I just require the members of the Gentlemen's League to capture the video of the process of punishing the bad guy and obtain the Grey Temple's acknowledgement of the event and the bad guy's identity. According to the severity of the matter, I have set up 10 tiers of rewards, and the individual will be rewarded accordingly. In addition, he would also receive a corresponding status on the Board of Gentlemen. Today, I am going to put in 5 million copper coins as the initial reward pool for the Gentlemen's League, Mag said with a smile. Chapter 1445. Can I attend with my helmet on? Mag didn't know what kind of impact his actions this morning would bring to Chaos City. However, as a part of this city, he had done whatever he could. He had made the Gentlemen's League funds income public, so anyone who wanted to support this initiative could also add to the fund. What was the most critical was the number of people who would answer his call and join the Gentlemen's League. Judging from the commotion just now, there should be some people who would do something. The Gentlemen's League. Michael paced up and down the meeting room with his brows tightly knitted together. Smiling, an official from the City Lord's Castle said, "Mr. Mag is really interesting. He actually thought of releasing a mercenary mission as a way to protect the residents in Chaos City." Interesting. Michael looked at that official with a grave expression, and said, "I don't think this is funny. It's a wake-up call. The law and order that we pride ourselves on are unable to protect the people at the lower level, and a citizen has to release a mission as a way to uphold the security. Tell me, doesn't that mean that we've done our job poorly?" The officer quickly stopped smiling, and sat upright with his head hung low. The atmosphere in the meeting room suddenly became tense and still. All the officers became very serious. "Sir, we have limited manpower at the City Lord's Castle and Grey Temple. We've already done our best at patrolling and sentry duties, but we still cannot cover every area. The bad people would always be able to find loopholes and blind spots. That's where we fail at our duties. But I'm afraid it's difficult to solve this problem in a short time," an official answered. Michael nodded, and said, "I am aware of this too. We've already done all that we could for patrolling and sentry duties, but we are seriously short-handed. Start recruitment quickly to fill in the turnover for the patrollers. We need to ensure that we can cover the entire area." "Sir, then about the Gentlemen's League, should we intercept it? This might actually clash with the law and order of Chaos City," an official raised his concern. "This is about protecting our residents and punishing the perpetrators. Why should we intercept it?" Don't you think we should support and encourage people to join this initiative? Michael shook his head. He smiled. If the citizens could join in to curb crime and violence, we would not have to fret over manpower shortage. Did you hear? A gentleman's league appeared in the mercenary union today. If you join the league to stop and punish evildoers in order to protect the people, you will be able to receive a reward. I saw it at the union this morning. It's not just the reward, there's even a gentleman point system. Apparently, there's a board of gentlemen, and doing missions would give you mission points, which is how you can leave your name on the board of gentlemen. I didn't think that there would be so many scumbags around. That's got my blood boiling. I will guard the northern part of the city tonight. If I were to meet any of these scumbags, you bet I would knock all his teeth out. I don't want the reward. Instead, I'm going to add another 100,000 copper coins into the fund so more people will join in. Bro, count me in. Bring me along, I want to beat those scumbags up too. At the entrance of Mamie restaurant in the afternoon, the sweet gang and the savory gang made peace momentarily as they came together to discuss the rapidly spreading news of the Gentlemen's League. After the mission was released, it was pushed to the top by the mercenary union. Therefore, the mercenaries who went to the union today all knew about it, and it soon spread among the mercenaries. Chaos City's law and order were completely different from those in any other place in this world, but people would rarely take note of the lives of the people living in the slums in the northern part of the city and what problems they faced. Most people actually didn't know that there was a group of people in this city living in poverty, without their dignity, and still having to face all sorts of danger and suffering. Therefore, when all these realizations were presented to them, it dealt them a huge shock, and made them furious. The customers outside were all very worked up. I think they are talking about some gentlemen's league. I heard that someone released a mission at the mercenary union to reward those who punish evildoers. Mia came in from outside, and agitatedly said, "This is a very good thing. If everyone is willing to participate, those evildoers will become pests of the city, and they won't dare to continue staying in Chaos City. Yet, I think that's pretty good. You can earn money by beating baddies up. That would definitely make you feel good," Babla concurred. "I wonder who came up with this good idea." Rena was a little excited. As someone who grew up in the slums, she knew what kind of fear the night meant for them. However, if everyone was willing to help, things would definitely be different. "Ahem, it's yours sincerely, Mag," who stood at the kitchen door, said a little proudly after clearing his throat softly. Everyone looked at Mag. "Boss, were you really the one?" Mia looked at Mag in shock. "Yes. Last night, on my way back, little Amy, Connie, and I met a young girl who was almost hurt. And such incidents often happen in the darkness in the northern part of the city. Since the city lord's castle and the Grey Temple cannot solve this problem at the moment, I thought of doing a little something." Mag nodded. He looked at everyone with a smile, and said, "Of course, I've discussed it with Irina last night, and we thought we could take this as a form of training before we go to the Orcs. We can use this to work on our team chemistry." "Boss is really a nice person," Rena thought to herself. "It's really good news for girls living in the slums." "If that's the case, there's not enough to go around," Connie muttered. Although the northern part of the city was a very large piece of land, and she could not cover the entire place on her own, she somehow felt as though a slice of her cake was being shared. "Oh, right, we are invited to attend the Chamber of Commerce's gala dinner tonight, so we will be closed for the night. Is everyone willing to go?" Mag asked. "Me, I'll go alone." Camilla raised her hand. She was not willing to attend the gala as a part of the restaurant. Otherwise, she would not be able to hold her head up high anymore, and she would probably be worse off than her uncle Dracula back then. Connie raised her hand, and asked, Can I attend with my helmet on?" She was a little excited. It was her first time attending any interesting event since she came to Chaos City. "You can if you're okay with it." Mag nodded. Chapter 1446 Boss, can I remove the helmet? Boss Mag, we won't even get to eat the hot pot tonight, right? Vanessa asked Mag piteously. Yes. The restaurant is completely closed tonight. Mag nodded with a smile. Well, he had no choice, as he had already agreed to go to the Chamber of Commerce's year-end celebration. He couldn't leave Rena alone in the restaurant to make hot pot while the rest of them went out to play. Even Mamie Restaurant has joined the Gentlemen's League. Seems like we have to go do something tonight. The customers' interest in the Gentlemen's League was piqued while they lamented the closure of the restaurant tonight. Many of the customers were going to try it out. After the busy lunch service was over, Mag said to all the ladies, if you ladies don't have appropriate clothes for tonight's banquet, you may go take a look at Blue Suede Fashion. Just tell them you are Mamie Restaurant's employees and put the tag on me for all the clothes that you buy. I will go pay for them later. Just take it as my gift to all of you for your hard work during this time. We can buy new clothes. All the ladies' eyes glowed. Mag smilingly said, yes. We have 4 hours before the banquet starts. You all may move around freely now. We will gather at the restaurant later at 5 p.m. before we set off together. Thank you, boss, all the ladies happily said, and after saying goodbye to Mag, they all left together. They even brought Anna along with them. Looking at the time, the elves should have arrived at Chaos City by now. Mag went up to the study. Irina had already settled the issue of the Night Elves' accommodation with City Lord Michael, so there was no need for him to get involved too much in case it attracted unnecessary attention to him. As for the matter of building the factory, Mag intended to talk to Sheer when he saw her tonight. After all, he had given her the authorization to use the steam engine. Be it the funds or the promotion of the products in the future, it would be much easier if Sheer worked with him. Profits should be shared. Mag understood that rationale very well. As an unqualified businessman, he didn't want to do every single thing by himself. It would be perfect if he could earn money without doing anything. As for the Night Elves, the sudden influx of 20,000 in the workforce in Chaos City was naturally the best choice for the newly built factory. The Moraton Manor. Cyril, this bastard, actually ganged up with Bowen and Harvey. This is akin to bringing the wolves into our house. Geoffrey said annoyedly as he smashed his glass on the floor. His chest was rising up and down rapidly due to his anger. Maynard, the chief secretary, lowered his head. Geoffrey finally appeased his anger after a while. He looked up at Maynard. How many board members are supporting Gloria now? If the Marquises and Dodge's board members are supporting young Master Cyril, and disregarding the Buffett's board members, the board members who support Miss Gloria are less than 10, Maynard answered. There are a total of 68 board members in the Chamber of Commerce. Geoffrey furrowed his brows worriedly. Maynard suggested, Master, should we assemble all the board members and tell them your standpoint? After all, Miss Gloria has just appeared in their sights recently, they might have some prejudices and misunderstandings. There's no need to. We would be simply adding on to the joke. Geoffrey shook his head, and his expression slowly became calm. If she can't even pass this test, she wouldn't be able to hold up the Moraton family. Yes. Maynard nodded. In a moving carriage. Young mistress, according to your request, the Buffett's 21 board members have agreed to vote for Gloria, the secretary told Sheer, who was resting with her eyes closed. How many votes has she gotten now? Sheer asked casually without opening her eyes. From the news, the Marquises and the Dodgeses are already ganging up with Cyril. They should have at least 30 stable votes in their hands. Furthermore, given Cyril's work in the Moraton family and his unique identity as the heir, he should be receiving more than Gloria from the Moraton's board members. As for the remaining independent board members, we still do not know their stand yet. The confirmed votes that Gloria has now should be around 25, the secretary swiftly answered. Sheer curled her lips and revealed a sneering smile. Come to speak of it, shouldn't I be supporting Cyril instead? Given his stupid action of collaborating with Bowen and Harvey, if he takes over the Moreton family, I don't even have to do anything, and he will waste the Moreton family away by himself. Irina returned to the restaurant in the evening. I have sent all of them to the factory, Irina said as she ate the beggar's chicken Mag made for her. Mag asked, what about their accommodations at night? We don't have enough dormitories now. I got them to bring some logs back on my way here. They should be building houses right now. We are elves, the species who know the wood element best. When it comes to building wooden houses, even the dwarves aren't as good as us, Irina said confidently. All right. Mag nodded. Since he didn't have to worry about it, he wasn't going to pursue the matter. He then said, the Chamber of Commerce has a banquet tonight. Everyone in the restaurant is going. Do you want to come along? Are you in charge of cooking? No, I am considered an invited guest, so I don't have to cook. Then why should I go? The food that the other chefs make is atrocious. Irina shook her head, and took a bite of the chicken thigh. I am going over to the factory to do some arrangements for them. All right. Mag nodded. The Night Elves' matters were more urgent. It wasn't necessary for her to go to this banquet. Irina left straight after filling up her tummy. She had plenty of things to do in order to settle 20,000 elves. Mag went upstairs to change into a casual suit after looking at the time. Considering that the outdoor temperature was a little low, he added on a grey coat. There was someone knocking on the door as soon as Mag got downstairs. He opened the door, and a group of beautiful maidens were standing at the restaurant's entrance, smiling at him. Look at our new clothes, boss. Blue suede's clothes are beautiful and warm. Moreover, they're as light as feathers and so comfortable on the body, Mia said happily. Mag stared at the smiling maidens in down jackets, and he was at a loss for words. Even though the blue suede's down jackets were very chic and also light and comfortable on the body, they were going to a banquet, after all. Wasn't it a little weird, when all of them attended in down jackets? Yes. It's so warm that it fogged up. I can't see anything. Connie, who was following after them, was talking to a tree seriously. Boss, can I remove the helmet? Mag still felt weird looking at all the ladies in their down jackets. However, it wasn't realistic for them to go change into extravagant evening wear at this point in time anymore. I am back. Amy's voice appeared behind them. Everyone turned around to look at Amy, who was wearing her magician robe and skipping over. Her two buns were swaying gently, and she looked absolutely adorable. Whoa! Is everyone wearing new clothes? Amy looked at all of them with bright eyes before turning around to ask Mag, Father, do I have new clothes too? I want to wear the same clothes as everyone. All right. Then we will go in and change now. Mag looked at the expectant Amy, and nodded with a smile. He had prepared a lovely cocktail dress for Amy initially, but the cocktail dress was obviously not as attractive to her as the down jacket now. Anyway, everyone was already wearing down jackets, so he might as well let Amy wear a down jacket to the banquet too. Furthermore, this was Blue Suede's new product, so he guessed it was still considered trendy in this world, right? After a while, Amy, who had changed into a short purplish-blue down jacket, skipped out of the door and joined the down jacket group. The light and puffy cutting with a pair of little rabbit earmuffs made her look super adorable. Let's go. It's time for us to set off now. Mag lifted up his wrist to look at his watch. It was almost 5 o'clock, and the 3 horse-drawn carriages that were pre-booked were already waiting at the door. All of them got into their carriages respectively. Father, where's big sister Irina? Isn't she going to the celebration? Amy asked after Mag and she got into the same carriage. She's probably very busy. After all, she still has to be responsible for so many night elves. Mag shook his head with a smile. All right. Amy was a tad disappointed. Apart from Irina, surely didn't go too. On that day in the Wind Forest, he saw Blower's father, Vincent Baybilly, chop an arm of Elliot before he died by the combined attack of the elves. However, Mag didn't see Blower on the battlefield that day, so he couldn't bring him back. Anna's expression was rather grave too. She propped her chin up with her hand as she looked out of the window through a small gap in the curtain, deep in thought. Don't worry, Anna. Shirley will return as usual. She will remember her promise with you. Mag placed his hand on Anna's head gently as he softly consoled her. This little one had a sensitive heart that didn't match her age. Anna replied softly. However, her expression didn't become more cheerful because of Mag's consolation. Big sister Anna, you can squeeze Ugly Duckling for a while. Whenever you are unhappy, you can squeeze its mushy face, and you will feel much better. Amy tossed Ugly Duckling into Anna's arms and smiled. Meow. Ugly Duckling looked puzzled. Why did they squeeze it? Because they were unhappy. Anna held Ugly Duckling's soft, warm, and fat face in her hands. She squeezed with both her hands at the same time, and its round face slowly became flat. The face changed into another shape after she squeezed. So cute. A smile appeared on Anna's face. It was as if she was holding a hot water bottle, and it felt so soft and comfortable. Ugly Duckling glared with its innocent big blue eyes, but because it was suppressed by Amy's tyranny, it could only let Anna toy with it. Mag looked at Anna, who was slowly getting more cheerful because she was playing with the cat, and smiled too. Indeed, only a child knew what a child liked. The square in front of the Chamber of Commerce was fully parked with all kinds of opulent horse-drawn carriages. Almost all the members of the Chamber of Commerce had gathered for today's year-end celebration, so all the business leaders in Chaos City were present. Cyril, wearing luxurious black and red robes and a green hat with a giant red ruby on top, was standing at the hall's entrance and greeting the businessmen. However, only the Chamber of Commerce's board members could make Cyril greet them proactively. As for the normal businessmen, they were all trying to get to know him with an ingratiating smile. However, most of them were ignored by Cyril. Cyril couldn't stop smiling. As long as he got Gloria fired from the board today, he would be the only heir of the Moreton family. Furthermore, Bolton had agreed that when he became the head of the Moreton family, he would partner with Harvey to make Cyril the president of the Chamber of Commerce. The three families were working together, so Cyril was fully confident that he could depose Gloria. As for the Buffett family, he didn't believe that Gloria could convince Shear to support her. After he became the head of the family, he would find a reason to get Blue Suede back. He heard Gloria had expanded her factories again. It had only been 2-3 months, and the monthly profit was already over 1 million just with the sales of the clothes alone. Everyone could see the potential of this shop. Although that was still inconsequential when compared to the Moreton family's wealth, he simply didn't want them to have a good life after they left the Moreton family. The slum at the north of the city was the best place for their family to live. Board member Downsell. Cyril smilingly reached out to shake the hand of a balding middle-aged man. They chatted politely for a while before exchanging a knowing smile. After Cyril was done chatting with Downsell, he saw Mag walk past him with a bevy of beautiful ladies. What is this fellow doing here again? Cyril frowned. It was this fellow who made him lose face during the previous year-end celebration. Moreover, he was getting along very well with Gloria. He didn't expect him to come again today. He remembered that he didn't join the Chamber of Commerce, and had even said that he wanted to overthrow the Chamber of Commerce. Wow! Those ladies are so beautiful. Their clothes are so special too. They look so cool. If I am not wrong, the clothes that they are wearing should be the new designs that Blue Suede Fashion hasn't officially released. I think they're called down jackets. My heavens! They actually got the pre-sale design. Aren't those not for sale yet? Could they be the staff members of Blue Suede? The jackets look fantastic on them. They seem super light yet very warm. All the women's attention was attracted by the down jackets on Yabimiya and the ladies. Many of them were loyal supporters of blue suede fashion, and had been eyeing the new winter wear that was going to be released 3 days later. They hadn't expected someone would wear it to the banquet today, and it was a bevy of beautiful young maidens. Aloud, Elizabeth looked at her face seriously before calmly replying, "It's not. It still looks good." Jane hid among the crowd with her head slightly lowered. It was terrifying for her to be stared at by so many people. She just wanted to hide away. Babla looked very collected instead. She was already used to being the center of attention. This was only a small occasion. Mag was walking right at the very front, holding a cute Lolita on both his sides and followed by 8 beautiful young maidens. He emitted a presence of a successful man. The server took the invite from Mag. After verifying it carefully, he looked at the big group of beautiful ladies, and hesitantly said, "Sir, the invite is authentic, but according to the rules, only family members are allowed to attend the banquet. You have brought so many people with you." "Yes. They're all my family members." "Is there a rule that limits the number of family members allowed?" Mr. Mag asked with a smile. That server and all the surrounding men sucked in a breath of cold air. Their gazes that were focused on Mag changed, and they became green with envy. "Animal." The men looked at the bevy of beautiful young maidens. There were an innocent elven maiden, an energetic half-dragon maiden, cool and aloof dragon maiden, sexy mermaid. Meanwhile, Mia's and the ladies' expressions were also a little weird. There seemed to be something wrong somewhere. "There's no such rule. Please enter," the server said with a complicated expression as he returned the invite to Mag. "Thank you." Mag kept the invite and continued on. "Wait a section. Could this lady please remove the unidentified object from her head? This may cause distress to other guests." The server noticed Connie in the crowd, and put up an arm to stop them again. Everyone's gazes began to land on Connie too. She looked like a petite maiden from her figure, but she was wearing a weird object that covered her whole head. They couldn't even see her eyes, let alone her face. It was indeed rather peculiar. "Do you know what she is wearing on her head?" Mag asked that server as he waved his hand, gesturing for Connie to come over. "No, I don't." The server shook his head. "Then, do you know that her clothes are from blue suede fashion, and their pre-sale price is more than 15,000 copper coins?" Mag continued to ask smilingly. "An expensive suit of clothes." The server's attitude became even more respectful. "Then, do you know the price of this latest headwear that she is wearing is 10 times that of her clothes?" Mag continued asking. 10 times. That server moved his Adam's apple before looking at that helmet, which was gleaming with a blue glow. The helmet seemed even brighter than it was before. "This headwear looks rather cool. Where can I buy it?" a young man behind him asked curiously. "Is this the latest trend now? Covering up the entire head?" A wealthy lady who had lots of hair accessories made up of gold and gemstones in her hair secretly noted that down in her heart. She was going to get someone to custom make one for her when she got back. "Does the banquet have a requirement on the guests' headwear?" Mag asked. "Esteemed guests, please enter." The server bowed humbly. Mag nodded slightly before leading the ladies forward on the red carpet. "If we are all family members, so we are one family?" Amy asked curiously. All the ladies looked at Mag. Some with a judgmental gaze, while there were a few other expectant gazes. Mag nodded with a natural expression. "Yes. We are one family from Mamie Restaurant." "Yes. This is great." Yabimiya smiled. "I, too, like this feeling of one family." The others were smiling too. They seemed to be rather satisfied with Mag's answer. Mag heaved a breath of relief in his heart. Even though it was simply to go through security, he still had to give his wits a thumbs up. Going through the long corridor, they arrived at the huge banquet hall. Countless candles lit up the banquet hall, and people were chatting in small groups. The banquet hadn't begun yet. Mag brought the ladies to a position near a corner. Such banquets were rather boring. If it wasn't for Gloria and Cyril having a vote-off, he wouldn't be interested to come. He noticed Cyril standing by the door when he came in. That green hat was so bright that it was impossible to ignore him. When compared to Gloria, apart from being a male, Cyril was not Gloria's match in every other aspect. In this world, patriarchal attitudes were still deeply rooted. Sheer, who became the head of a clan, was still an exception. However, Mag would be happy to see Gloria become the next head of the Moreton family, and it wasn't simply because they were friends. He, too, had some selfish thoughts. Once Gloria became the head of the Moreton family, regardless if it was Sheer or Cyril too who became the president of the Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber of Commerce would be different from now. It was equal to accomplishing what he had set out to do at first. All the ladies were rather curious about the banquet. In particular, Yabimya, Gina, Jane, and Rena, who had never been to a banquet like this before, were looking around curiously. Beautiful maidens were always the center of attention at a banquet, especially when they gathered together. Even if they were in a corner, they still became one of the main focuses. "Boss Mag, I didn't expect you would be here. Moreover, all the beautiful ladies from the restaurant are here too. Is it possible that we would be very fortunate to eat Boss Mag's cooking at tonight's banquet?" a voice spoke from the side. Mag turned around and saw Robert, the president of the Food Association, coming over with a glass of red wine in his hand. He smiled. "What a coincidence to meet President Robert here. I'm simply here to join the occasion today. I'm not in charge of the catering." "Oh, I see. It's such a pity," Robert said rather regretfully. However, he didn't comment too much on that topic. After making some small talk with Mag, he was brought away by others who came to talk to him. After that, there were restaurant's other regulars coming over to greet Mag as well. Mamie Restaurant was Chaos City's most famous restaurant now, so it wasn't surprising that members of the Chamber of Commerce always frequented it. After all, normal families couldn't afford to eat there every day. After the ladies got Mag's approval, they, too, began to move around the banquet hall. Amy led Anna to the buffet area, and began to eat to her heart's content. "I'm warning you now. If you continue to touch me with your filthy hands, you are going to have an ugly death." A voice with a tinge of coldness and disgust appeared at the side. Mag turned around, and saw Babla staring at a young man with yellow hair who was blocking her way. One wearing a green hat is a figurative expression in Chinese that means a man is being cheated on by his wife. Irk, there used to be a law during one of the later Chinese dynasties that forced either family members or husbands of prostitutes to wear green hats, hence the phrase. If you're going to China and have a green hat or cap, never, ever put it on. 2. I think the author meant Gloria. Chapter 1449. Does your family own the Basti prison? Isn't that young Master Roy from the Dodge's family? Which family's young mistress is that maiden? How did she antagonize this rogue? I heard young Master Roy loves petite girls the most. Tisk, isn't he a perverted Lilicon one then? I'm not sure if he is a Lilicon, but this young master is most definitely a pervert. This young maiden must be down on her luck to meet him today. Very soon, people began to recognize that young man, and began to talk about him softly. The Dodge's family? Mag raised his eyebrow slightly. He wasn't worried about Babla, because, after all, Her Highness the Moon Nation's princess was also a powerful 7th-tier spatial magic caster. Killing this notorious young master would be no different from killing an ant to her. Instead, he was worried that Babla might be too hard-handed. It would be a mess if a human life was lost. Of course, Babla's identity was many times more respectable than that of a merchant family's young master. However, this world's understanding of the moon was still stuck in the times of legends and daydreams. If he said Babla was the princess of the Moon Nation, and applied for immunity for her in court, he would most likely be beaten to death for contempt of court. Roy looked at the maiden in front of him, and insuppressible urges began to surge in his heart. This height and this figure were totally his type. He hadn't met such a lovely girl for a long time. Even his so-called girlfriends in the past could not hold a candle to her. Even the way she looked when she was furious was cute to him. As one of the 4 young masters of Chaos City and the sole heir of the Dodges family, he had never failed at getting a girl that he liked. After girls found out about his identity, their eyes would begin to glow. That was also his favorite instant. Roy lowered his head to look at Babla as he smiled arrogantly. Now, I'm giving you a chance to kiss my hand and beg for my forgiveness. As the heir of the Dodges family, I will consider giving you a chance and forgive your stupid mistake. Kiss your hand and beg for your forgiveness. Babla flicked a disgusted glance at Roy's short and stubby fingers. Indeed, not every man's hands were as good-looking as her boss's. Now, she was going to euthanize this shameless fellow. As for whatever Dodge's family, who did they think they were? Yes, it's your honor to kiss a noble hand like mine. Roy lifted his right hand and looked at it against the light before smiling at Babla obscenely. Of course, if you let me squeeze your cheek, this matter will be considered over. After speaking, Roy reached out for Babla's cheek. He could almost see this maiden's coy look under his ministrations. Eat sh*t, you cursed man. Before Roy's hand could touch Babla's face, Babla already gave him an uppercut on his chin. He was KO'd instantly by a Lolita who was a head shorter than him. He flew backward and landed in the center of the banquet hall 3 meters away. A commotion broke out in the banquet hall, and the guests all quickly backed off as they stared at Roy, who was sent flying back with a shocked expression. Who was it that dared to antagonize this young master on the Chamber of Commerce's year-end celebration? The Dodges family were one of the founding families of the Chamber of Commerce, after all. Roy held his swollen chin as he teared in pain. He tilted his head and spat out 2 shattered teeth while he accused Babla with a crying tone, You hit me." Babla lowered her fist as she coldly said, "You would have been dead if your filthy hand had touched me. Who is this maiden? She's so fierce. She's done what I've always wanted to do if I ain't been afraid of the Dodges family's retribution." Someone actually beat up young Master Roy. Seems like there is more than one good show today. Today's so interesting. People began to discuss among themselves as they looked at Roy on the floor with his teeth out and Babla, who was petite but had a powerful presence. Oh no! Babla is in trouble. Mia found Babla in the crowd, and wanted to get over to her quickly. "Don't worry. That fellow can't hurt her." Elizabeth held onto her wrist gently, and softly said, "Let boss settle this. We're not suitable to appear in the limelight here." Yabimiya gave it a brief thought, and then nodded. She wouldn't know what to do even if she went forward. Jane covered her face in the crowd. She taught Babla one phrase from her hometown 2 days ago after her constant bugging. She didn't expect she would utilize it so soon. However, she began to look at Babla worriedly. Would she get into trouble for hitting someone? Mag nodded with satisfaction after he saw that scene. Only 2 teeth were lost. It was a very reasonable and perfect ending. After straightening his clothes, he prepared to get out there to alleviate the tense atmosphere, and then resolve this matter. Roy looked at Babla, and felt a chill up his back. He had a feeling that this fellow wasn't joking. However, Roy knew his reputation was tarnished as so many people saw him get beaten up by a girl. He would be laughed at in the future even if he went about with the name of one of 4 young masters of Chaos City. Hence, he got frustrated immediately, and screamed, "Guards! Guards! Arrest this crazy woman and send her to Basti prison. I want her to stay there for the rest of her life." A few guards dashed out, and looked at Babla hesitantly. Even though Roy's identity was noble, they had no idea about this maiden's identity. People who came to this banquet were mostly people they couldn't afford to offend. "Roy, my boy. What happened to you?" Right then, a stout middle-aged man quickly walked out from the crowd and came to Roy, who was lying on the floor with half of his face swollen. There was a bloodstain in the corner of his mouth, and the two broken teeth covered with blood on the floor were especially glaring. Roy teared even more when he saw that fatty. He pointed at Babla as he cried, "Father, that woman! That B***tch hit me. She even broke my teeth. You cannot let her off." That fatty turned to look at Babla, and furiously said, "A**Shoal, how dare you beat my son? Guards, you useless people! Go arrest her, and then send her to the Basti prison. Lock her up for 50 years. Although all the guards were a little hesitant, it was Harvey who issued the order, so they still surrounded Babla. They're indeed father and son. Even the way they speak is identical. Right at that moment, Mag walked out from the crowd and stood next to Babla. He looked at Harvey and Roy, and sarcastically said, "Does your family own the Basti prison? Can you decide on how many years a person should be locked up? One person whose fetish is small girls or those who look like one?" Chapter 1450 I've been formally trained. Boss Mag is still as tough as ever. However, would he get thrown out because of this? The guests looked with bright eyes at Mag who'd come forward. Many of them even laughed because they had disliked the tyrannical behavior of Harvey and Roy for a long time. Everyone was discussing it softly. Some young ladies were even looking at the cutest height difference with glowing eyes. What a bother! Isn't it better to euthanize such a scum right away? Babla looked at Mag's back with annoyance flashing through her eyes. After a moment of pondering, she slowly lowered her right hand, which was already open up. "Who are you? How dare you talk to me like this?" Harvey stared at Mag with a somber gaze. As the Chamber of Commerce's vice president and the head of the Dodge's family, he enjoyed a very high status in the Chaos City's business world, so he had never been laughed at in public. Mag smiled. "I am Mag. Chaos City respects freedom of speech, so how is talking to you something very brave? Perhaps you could still lift up that fat arm of yours and jump up to hit my chin." The banquet hall fell into a silence for a brief moment. People were staring at the short and fat Harvey, and then the banquet hall burst into laughter. Many people were turning their heads around, trying to control their facial expressions. A mister in a severe outfit took out a silk handkerchief to clean the clothes for the lady standing opposite him apologetically. "I've been formally trained not to laugh no matter how funny things are, unless I really couldn't control myself." Harvey's face flushed and turned pale alternatively. The sounds of the surrounding laughter felt like slaps on his face. He had never been humiliated like this before. He clenched his fists, and coldly said to Mag, "Boy, you are playing with fire here." "Playing with fire?" Mag chuckled. "My daughter is very good at playing with fire. If you ask politely, I don't mind letting her play with you for a while." "You?" Harvey pointed at Mag with a trembling finger. He sucked in a few deep breaths to calm himself down before smirking at Mag. "Do you know how long she is going to spend in the prison for aggravated assault?" "Aggravated assault?" Mag innocently asked the surrounding guests. "Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, may I confirm that what happened earlier was a tall and fat young master trying to harass a weak and helpless Lolita who had no choice but to raise her dainty little fist in resistance?" Mag's gaze landed back on Harvey as he gravely asked, "Do you know how many years he could be locked up for molesting underage girls? How many strapping men he has to pick up soap for? As an accessory to his crime, don't you think you would be required to join him in there for a period of time?" The guests' expressions became a little weird. It sounded like the truth initially, as Roy did try to touch Babla and take advantage of her first, yet while this maiden looked petite, that was a mighty strike. Okay. Which part of her was dainty? She KO'd a bulky 90 kg man with a single punch. Not many of the guests present were able to do that. But after Mag's analysis, it became very rational and successfully occupied the commanding heights of morality and law. And the talk about picking up soap was even too wonderful for words. As expected, Both father and son paled upon hearing that. They had been used to bullying people in their daily lives, so they couldn't react to someone who stood up to them. "Father, I don't want to go to prison. I don't want to pick up soap," Roy said terrifiedly as he grasped Harvey's sleeve with a pale face. Harvey calmed himself down, and then told Mag, You are sprouting nonsense. How could my son do anything to her in public? But everyone saw her beat him up. Don't think that you can twist the facts simply because you are eloquent. There are many witnesses here today. You guys are not getting away with this." "Getting away? Why should we get away? If you think you can alter the truth because you have more people on your side, you might have overestimated your influence and underestimated the Grey Temple's capabilities." Mag smiled. If they were going to use connections, he really wasn't afraid of him. After all, he was holding a secret position with the City Lord's castle. He was part of the system. Harvey stared at Mag, who refused to accede to either threats or enticements, with an angry red face. However, those guards were halted by Mag's words. They didn't dare to get involved in the big shots fight, so they had no intention to help Harvey at all. Boss is so formidable. He scared all of them without having to do anything. Yabimiya was looking at Mag with glowing eyes. Compared to him, she felt as if her mouth was fake. Elizabeth was also looking at Mag with admiration. Although she was rather surprised at Mag's eloquence as he was completely different from his usual gentlemanly behavior he showed while he was with them, being tough to external threats was a good character trait. "Tisk seems like my help is not required." At the second floor's railing, Camilla swirled the red wine in her glass as she chuckled softly. Mag looked rather handsome when she looked at him from this particular angle. "Something's not right? What's wrong with me? Why would I find a man attractive? Men are all trash. They're not good." Camilla swiftly shook her head to get rid of the weird thoughts in her head. "What's going on?" Right then, a sinister voice spoke. The guests gave way for Cyril, who was wearing bright red clothes and a green hat, to come through. He threw a glance at Mag and frowned. What was this fellow doing here? Then, his gaze fell onto Roy, who was still sitting on the floor with a swollen cheek, and Harvey, who was flushed. His demeanor changed as he asked, "Vice President Harvey, what happened to you?" "This fellow. They hit my son and then maligned me and my son. They even said they wanted to send us to Basti prison." Harvey pointed at Mag and complained first even when they were the guilty party. "Great! This is the opportunity that I've been waiting for." Cyril's eyes lit up as he turned and frowned at Mag and Babla behind him. "You are not in the Chamber of Commerce, so how did you make your way in? Perhaps you are a thief who came here for the free food and drinks? Now, you are even hurting Roy maliciously and slandering the Chamber of Commerce's vice president. Guards, tie the two of them up and send them straight to the Grey Temple." Cyril was after all the president's son, and had always been deemed the Moreton family's heir, so the guards had to act when they heard his orders. They surrounded Mag, and someone even took out a rope. "Wait a minute." Right at that moment, a melodious voice spoke up beyond the crowd. At the same time, the host at the door announced, "Board member Gloria has arrived."